Meeting is now being recorded. Please ensure your microphones are off, and before we will begin, I will ask the Reverend Bruce Jardine to lead us in prayer. Thank you.
To bless us at this time, and that I would grant to bless the work of this committee, that I would be with us for good this day and the decisions that have to be made, and that each one may be for the good of the community to which we belong. And we pray thy blessing to be upon the whole work of the council, and that we may be mindful to be praying day by day for those that are in authority, and seeking that thy blessing may indeed come through their work and their endeavours, and the behalf of ordinary men and women. And we pray that thou would be blessing our King and would be restoring him to a measure of health and strength. And we pray that as we seek temporal blessings upon these islands, that we would also be seeking spiritual blessings, that we may be of those that know the fullness of the provision that there is with thee, the God of all grace and the Father of mercies. We pray then that thou would do us good, take care of each one of us, bless us, we pray thee, in our day and generation. Grant to take the glory to thyself, and to forgive our many sins, for Jesus' sake. Amen.
Thanks, Reverend Jardine. In relation to declarations of interest, members must leave the chamber or in the call remotely. Item 3 will be taken in private at the end of the meeting, and prior to moving into private, participants other than the relevant officer and members will be asked to leave the meeting. A reminder that the meeting is now being recorded, and it will be made available on the caller's website following the meeting. I am ruling item 12 as a late report. Before we start, I'd just like to pay a tribute. I'd like to pay tribute to Celia McSween, Scoil Satur, and Balavanik Primary School attainment worker who passed away suddenly on Saturday, the 3rd of February, 2024 in North Uist. We will remember Celia as a kind and caring individual who touched the lives of so many of our children, young people, and their families. Celia had an ability to create a warm and inviting environment for our most vulnerable children. She had an innate ability to understand and emphasize with others, especially with the children that needed one-to-one support with their learning. Celia's kind and caring nature ensured that children were able to express themselves freely, thrive academically and emotionally, and most importantly, have fun with others. She brought such joy and laughter into our schools, and she will be sorely missed by our pupils and staff. I'd just like to extend that condolences to the vice chair, it was vice chair's sister-in-law, so it was just to add that as well. So I'd now like to share some good news with the committee on a separate sheet. Urca Primary School had a number of important successes recognised in December 2023 with achievements of an Eco School Green Flag and Sports Scotland Gold Award and Silver accreditation in the Rights Respecting Schools Award. We congratulate Urca School on their hard work and achievements. East Scoil. Journalist Ruth Wishart recently singled out East Scoil, and by extension the caller, in a piece written in the national newspaper. Writing about the 2023 programme for International Student Assessments statistic, Wishart highlights the need to be innovative in our approach to education delivery, stating, and there are still others, the pioneers of East Scoil amongst them, who see a problem and transform it into an opportunity rather than impotently beating their breasts. The full article can be accessed on the website of the national newspaper. Tong Primary. Last term, Gaelic medium pupils at Tong School took part in a social enterprise competition with Social Enterprise Academy Scotland. After consulting with SEA and GNAC staff, pupils came to the decision to invite members of the community into the school to meet with them and share stories and songs to increase the use of Gaelic out with the school, while also improving the pupils' knowledge about their own community. The project was awarded second place and won £75 towards its costs. So congratulations to Tong Primary. Right, we'll move on. So we'll start with item 1 and the minutes of the meeting of the 28th of November 2023 for approval. Do I have approval? Yep, looks like it. Okay, thanks. Number 2 is declaration of interest, and I'll just go over it again just to so everyone's crystal clear. Members are asked to declare any interest they have in any items on the agenda. It would be helpful if members express why they are declaring an interest in the items concerned. Members in the chamber, please do so now by pressing your microphone or on remotely through Teams by using the raised hand function. Are there any declarations anybody wants to declare? No, right. So just if there is, please ensure that the declaration is repeated prior to the relevant item and adhere to the protocol as previously indicated. Children's Services, item 3. So item 3 will be taken in private and we'll move on to item 4. So item 4, the Bairns Hoose Pathfinder Programme. This report relates to the Bairns Hoose Pathfinder Programme. Are you speaking? Jack, is it? Oh, Max. So Max. Right, okay. So Ms. Caroline Passy will answer any questions, will speak to the report and answer any questions in relation to the report. Caroline. Is she online?
Sorry, maybe perhaps there was a little delay there. Yeah,
No,
I'll be speaking to Jack's report on the Bairns Hoose.
Sorry, what was that? Say that again, so I didn't catch that.
I said I will be speaking to Jack's report on the Bairns Hoose.
Yeah, that's fine.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, is there anything you want to speak about the
report? Are you asking me to do that just now?
Yeah, to do it now.
Sorry,
yeah.
I thought you were going through the table.
It's all right.
Sorry. Good morning, committee. I'm pleased to be here. I'm here on behalf of Jack Libby, Head of Service for Children's Social Work Services. My name is Caroline Passy, and I'm the Children's Service Manager across the Western Isles. So the application today is to look at the update on the Bairns House Pathfinder and to seek approval in relation to using the ground floor at St Lennon's as our Bairns House. So in terms of the context, the Bairns House Pathfinder project is being rolled out by the Scottish Government across Scotland, and the Western Isles Council have been successful in their Pathfinder bid alongside 6 other local authority areas across Scotland. We all met in November 2023 with the Scottish Government and Health Improvement Scotland to launch the project, and we're currently working on a self-assessment tool across all the local authorities to identify priority areas for taking forward in relation to the project. So that's where we're at currently. Within the original application to the Scottish Government to become a successful Pathfinder, we looked at 2 premises. We looked at the old house in Stornoway. However, after exploring that further, it does look like the financial cost for that would outweigh what we would be allocated from the Scottish Government. So we've then looked at St Lennon's in Stornoway and believe that is a good location to have our Bairns House. So we're asking for the committee to kind of consider that today. It is a more affordable option and would fit within the money allocated by the Scottish Government. And also the added value of that is we've had the Children and Families Social Work Services upstairs above St Lennon's. So the intention, right now there are services housed within St Lennon's downstairs. However, there are negotiations, communications between Jack and those services about looking at alternative premises whereby these services can continue to operate. We have also considered, if we're successful in using St Lennon's as our bairns' house, that we can also, and we did put this in our original application to the Scottish Government, to use the bairns' house facility for community resources that also offer services to children. So we kind of looked at it as a kind of bairns' house plus, if you like. So that's what we're asking in terms of recommendation, that that we seek approval to use the ground floor at St Lennon's as our bairns' house project.
Okay, thanks, Caroline. Thanks for that. Do any members have any questions? First, just see who goes first. Right, Councillor Angus McCormack seems to have come
Thank
up
you
first.
very much indeed. I'm very happy with the idea of bairns' house, and I can see why what I refer to as pointers would be an ideal location. I wonder if you could say a little bit more about where you're hoping to have pointers in future, because it's an ideal location for pointers. It's a town centre location, and the kids will go to it very readily. So I'm hoping that you can find somewhere that's equally easy to access.
And that's a very good question. And we would agree that having a central location for the children to access would be beneficial. So there have been discussions, particularly around about the Bay Head area, whereby pointers could continue to operate. With that in mind, that as a central location for children to access. So we have taken cognizance of that, and Jack has been having those discussions with the people who are running those services, and hopefully that answers your question.
So it's okay. Okay, so come in. You come in, Malcolm. Hang on. We'll have to take some people off here because everybody wants to speak. Everyone's got.
Thank you very much, Chair, for allowing me to respond. Town centre was the most important word in what I had to say, and Bay Head is not exactly my idea of town centre, but depending on what the facility is and how attractive it might be, that may answer the question. But we're a bit reluctant about that.
Okay.
Well, we'll try and get it. We'll see how it all pans out. Malcolm.
Thank you, Chair. It was simply to point out that I think this is an optimal solution for the Comhairle at this time, because members will recall that the St Lennon's building was on the list of consideration for other use or even disposal owing to its costs, and this would secure the future of that building for children's services, for which it has, I'm using the term loosely, been used for many years. And I know from discussions with Mr. Libby that it's hoped that once this establishment is up and running, we could look at restoring or returning some of these services to that building. But in the meantime, the requirement has been that any equivalents be in the town centre, however that's defined. So it's something officers I know are very conscious of, but it would certainly assist in securing the future of a building which is currently costing us a considerable amount of money, and which has been identified by the Budget and Strategy Board for consideration, if I can put it that way. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Michael. Right, let's see who comes up next. Susan.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the report. I'm a huge advocate for the bairns' house and what it is that we're doing, and particularly I'm drawn to the respecting the right and well-being of the child at all times. And I hope that equally applies to the children who use pointers at the moment. It's difficult to support the displacing of pointers when we don't know where it's going to go. And although the building does look fantastic in the plans, as I say, it's hard to get behind that when we don't know what the fate of pointers will be, where that will be, whether they'll be able to move back into and co-locate, as it said in the report, with the Bairnshouse. So I would like a bit more clarity on where pointers' future is going to be before making a decision about moving them out of the building that they currently occupy.
Okay, is there anyone who wants to come back on that? You come back at Caroline, or you don't?
I mean, I suppose currently we don't have a location, but I think, you know, to reassure people that the conversations are happening, people are working in partnership with each other to look at the best solution for everybody involved. So that's a good thing in my view. That, you know, whilst we're looking for this change in relation to using a premises that other services are using, it's not without consideration and discussion around about looking at alternatives which will suit the needs of these resources. So those discussions are taking place, and hopefully that could reassure people in relation to making a decision.
Okay, thanks, Caroline. Do you want to come back at all? I mean, basically, I mean, as I say, we're very consciously aware of, you know, the importance of pointers, and we're certainly not looking at trying to get rid of it in any shape or form. So it's just really while this work is going on that we'd be looking to displace it. I mean, with any luck, we'd be able to get it back to St Leonard's, and after that work's completed, but work has to be done. So it would have to go even somewhere temporarily, even just to take it out, so that any renovation work can be done to set up for Bairns House. So that's really where we're at the moment. Yeah, sorry, Don.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to add a little bit further to the comments already made by Caroline in relation to that. In identification of the use of the St Leonard's building for the Bairnshouse project, the consideration was given to the use of the ground floor as the facility for pointers. One of the things that was being looked at closely about that is the significant shift that has happened in the last number of years about how young people were using what was the pointers facility. It's currently predominantly being used by a small number of groups, important groups. Some of them are detailed in the report, and we're working with CLD colleagues at the moment to do a full review of all the groups that were accessing that building. But there has been quite a shift away from it being what was more predominantly a youth drop-in centre, particularly through the development of alternative youth drop-in at the Shed, being one of the main provisions. We're also looking at where this facility could relocate to, for instance, the youth club provision within the Bridge Centre. One of the things that we're looking at in the data that we're receiving through the Youth Justice Group and working with Police Scotland is that young people are looking for outlet that is more towards the Manor area of Stornoway, and that's nearer that area. So there's been a bit of a turnover in the use and uptake of the building at St Leonard's as a drop-in centre for young people. It's one of these trends that we've seen that's moved on. So one of the focus that we're looking at with this is trying to take a service-based approach where we're looking at what services need to be maintained and then finding the right facility to continue these. And that's work that's ongoing with Jack and his team and CLD and their teams to sustain the groups that are already using these facilities and to relocate them for the period of time that this project is aiming to be undertaken.
Okay, thanks, Donald. I'll just see if there's any other next question. Yeah, I'm just waiting for them to. So do you want to come back?
If you don't mind,
Yeah.
Just for a bit of clarity, is the proposal then to move pointers out while it's refurbed and then move them back in, or is it to move them permanently to another site?
So do you want me to come in on that?
Yeah, please, Karen, thanks.
Yeah. So the proposal right now is, yes, to move pointers out with, obviously, whilst the work is underway, and consideration being given to pointers using the facility once it's up and running. You know, there's no definites in relation to, they may well, you know, prefer to be housed where they move to in the longer term. So, but negotiations or considerations are given to being able to use the facility once we have it refurbished and up and running. If that answers your question.
Right, who's next? George Murray's been waiting quite a while. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks very much, Caroline. It's really, it looks a pretty impressive facility, I must say. I refer to 5.7 of the report, and the aims are to have a police officer and a health professional located within the same building. I suspect I know the answer to the question, but I'll ask it anyway. Will that be an additional police officer? Will it be a uniformed police officer? Or will it be a plainclothes officer with child protection duties? And if it was a uniformed police officer, could that officer double up as a town centre patrol officer? Thank you.
Well, in relation to the last part of your question, I can't answer that. That's something that maybe I should take back to Jack. But in terms of the Bairnshouse, the standards are that we're working very closely in partnership with our police health colleagues, and within the sort of practice of the Bairnshouse, what we would use, there's a new model being implemented currently within the Western Isles called the Scottish Child Interview Model, which is a sort of therapeutic interview model that whereby police and social work would interview children. That practice is already going on, but within the standards of the Bairnshouse, the recommendation is that we work together in that co-located space. So there have been 2 police officers trained in the Scottish Child Interview Model, as there has been 2 social workers across the Western Isles been trained in the Scottish interview model. So that practice is already going on. So therefore, when we're up and running with the Bairnshouse location, we will make arrangements for that co-location to happen. So hopefully that answers your question.
It doesn't. No, sorry, Caroline.
Sorry.
Is it going to be an officer deployed there full time? Is basically was the
So yes. I mean, in terms of our numbers across the Western Isles, the officer, will be co-located. However, will that be their full-time duties? I very much doubt it. Because again, given our numbers, likewise, in relation to the social workers who are identified in the application of the Scottish Child Interview Model in relation to interviewing children and being part of the co-location at Bairnshouse, they will have other duties in relation to the work that will be undertaken in the Bairnshouse. So, and that's really in other local authority areas, there will be, they have identified police and social workers who will predominantly purely be delivering their work within the Bairnshouse. However, our numbers across the Western Isles don't allow for that. So there will be other duties. What those are, I can't I can't comment on that in relation to the police.
Okay, thanks, Caroline. Thanks again. Okay. Ray, Councillor Ray Mackenzie.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, this sounds like a great facility, and obviously, because of the money that's become available, it gives us a great opportunity to make, you know, good use of the space. Pointers is not a drop-in centre, obviously. It's used by many different organisations and groups. I mean, I was in there yesterday, and I think there was a mother and toddlers or something group that was coming in just after I was there. You know, so there is a lot of you know, different groups using this place. I'm concerned because of that that during the development of this facility, that there will be a delay and groups may not have, you know, a place to go. Bayhead has been mentioned, and there are the Bridge Centre and Falch. They're both out there, and I don't know if it's possible, you know, to double up on these different buildings. So that is my one fear. I think it's a great facility if we can get money to convert this, and it will certainly be a really useful facility in the centre of town. There is a mention in the report about the old house maybe, and I think something's got to be done about that quickly, because it's going to be losing the council more and more money, and I think that should be sold to get funds to make use of elsewhere. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Do you want to come in? Did you want to come in, Don?
I'll maybe just respond to that to some degree, and maybe if Caroline wants to make any comment as well. Yes, thank you, Chair. In response to what Councillor Mackenzie has said there, my reference to drop-in was what was the pre-COVID function of Pointers as a youth drop-in centre, where there were set times where a youth club type environment ran and young people dropped in. It is predominantly used now by pre-organised and pre-constituted groups, as Councillor Mackenzie has mentioned. There's mums groups, carers groups, the LGBT group, there's a care experience group, and a few others using it. And again, it's to reassure that we are undertaking a full audit of all the groups that are currently registered to be using the Pointers facility, and are working with CLD and other colleagues to make sure that they have a relocation plan as part of the work to progress the Bairnshoes. So I don't think that from the sense I get that there is any issue with the projection of the Bairnshoes itself, but just a concern about the displacement of the use of the Pointers facility at the moment. And these are being taken account of and are being worked on to get alternative provision for them.
Okay, thanks, Donald. Councillor Gordon Murray.
Thanks, Chair. I'm not a member of your committee, and I'd like to thank Caroline and the team of the department. Well, congratulate them on their successful application becoming a Bairnshoes Pathfinder. And I think that the key values highlighted at 5.2 are hugely important and will make a huge difference in the lives of children who have been victims or witnessed to abuse or violence. So it's very important. I'd just like to lend my voice to those concerns about the future of Pointers. I know last Saturday there was a group using it, Autism Eilean Siar, for a successful cafe. And also there had been discussions in some of the, I think Mr. MacLeod was probably present, as an antidote to some of the antisocial behaviour issues that have been happening, that there's a lack of facilities such as a drop-in Pointers was pre-COVID. But my other point was, which was mentioned by Councillor Ray Mackenzie, was the old house, and there is a concern that that the asset could possibly fall into a bit of disrepair or look at being quite a financial burden to the council. So I think, as well as pointers, the future of pointers being quite urgently looked at. I think we really have to look at the old house as a burden and maybe sold so that it could replenish the capital programme if there's not going to be a use for it. So as I say, I'm not a member of your committee, but I think that's a concern, especially with the pressures on the capital budget.
Okay, you can look at that. Donald.
Yes, thanks, Chair, and thank you to Councillor Murray for these points. I think I did mention in a previous response that one of the things that was being considered around this was the provision of facilities for young people in relation to concerns around antisocial behaviour in Stornoway. And what has been coming through with the feedback from young people in the community is, as I mentioned in that response, about a will to try and get something established in that area of Stornoway, which is seeing the predominant display of antisocial behaviour at the moment, and that is closer to the current Bridge Centre. And we have what has been taken together in the assessment of these proposals is that there are alternatives available for all the different functions that are currently using the Pointers facility. So Mr. Libby and his colleagues that are progressing the Bairnshuis approach are confident that all the facilities that currently use it are able to be relocated. In terms of the concerns around the old house, as was picked up in this report, it was assessed as a potential venue for the Bairnshuis, but the condition of the building, the complexity of its current design, and the cost that would be incurred in terms of remodelling that to be suitable for Bairnshuis was considerable and well above the budget available. It had been held for a period of time to allow for that assessment to take place, but my understanding is that once it's confirmed that the Bairnshuis would not be using the old house, it would likely now move to disposal. So that will be addressed in due course, and the relevant departments will be taking that forward.
Okay, right, thanks. Right, Councillor Callum McLean, but everyone's, you're not lighting up. Oh, no, I have to wait. I have to wait to Donald. Let me do Donald first. Donald. Okay, he's gone red. Okay.
Pardon?
Oh, Norman.
Am I jumping in somebody else's?
Go on, just go, Callum.
Thanks, Chair.
Just go, Callum. No, hang on, just hold it. That's it. Right, now go, Donald. That's it.
Sorry, Chairman, I'm not a member of your committee. Just a quick point in terms of 4.1 and some clarification. The substantial majority of this grant is capital, and I'm just wondering, is that figure going to be required for this refurbishment, for the whole refurbishment? Will we need to use all of that? And the remainder, I take it, is revenue. Is that to fund the posts that are mentioned there, the child protection coordinator and the backfill for a social worker? Just some clarity in that.
Caroline may have some more detail on that as well, but that is my understanding as well, Councillor Crichton, that the capital investment is required for the significant refurbishment of the ground floor of the St Leonard's building. The plans that were appended to the report demonstrate the scale of work that is required. There's a significant redesign and refurbishment needed of the St Leonard's building, and as the Chief Executive has referenced already when he mentioned it, the building was getting into a state of disrepair and does require investment to maintain it. So that the capital investment is required to secure the facility for Bairnshuis within St Leonard's, and the revenue budget is for the operating costs and staff involved in maintaining the Bairnshuis. So yes is the answer to Councillor Crichton's question.
Good. Right, thanks. I'll bring Norman in. Norman, sorry, Callum, I'll bring Norman in because he was ahead. Right. Sorry, I always miss him. He's out on my left. I always miss him. I always miss him. He just hides away in the corner there. Oh, no, clearly not.
Button and I'll wait.
No, go on, Norman. Norman, just go on.
All right. Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I mean, I welcome this development. I mean, it's been shouted long and hard for the last couple of years that, you know, the youth in Stornoway have nothing to do and nowhere to go. You know, so the provision of this facility, if we're going to repurpose pointers and move them elsewhere, where the refurbishment takes place good and well, and put them back wherever it is that they wish to be, whether it be pointers or further out towards the manor area, wherever we can accommodate them that suits them best. It's obviously for the better good of the provision we're hoping to make for our young adults. I'm a great believer in Kevin Costner's saying, if you rebuild it, they will come, possibly. So I welcome this. But following up from what Councillor Murray said earlier on about Police Scotland, the one thing we have to welcome is their potential investment in what we're trying to do to curb antisocial behaviour in the town centre. I don't think having a uniformed policeman anywhere amongst kids in an informal setting is going to be of any benefit to them. And I understood from what you said yourself, Caroline, about the police will undergo, some other officers will undergo special training to do with how to deal with kids in this particular environment and with antisocial behaviour, etc. So it is a specialist skill set amongst some of the officers. My worry about the whole thing is, will Police Scotland have the resources to invest in additional capacity to help us with what we're trying to do? Or are they going to try to accommodate this within their own budget currently? Because that certainly will not work, because we do not have enough officers in the Western Isles as it is. I'm led to believe that we've got more staff for the security services within Stornoway Airport than we do within the whole of the policing in the Western Isles. So unless we have additional resource, however it's funded through Police Scotland for the additional use of these officers, we will struggle. We want to have somebody who's equipped with the skill set you talked about, who will be able to deal in an informal setting, so that we don't have a situation where we've got people being deterred from attending the facility because we've got some kind of police presence there. It has to be seen as a light touch presence, but somebody who's there to educate the kids more than anything else. But my worry is about the resource. I think I share the same with Councillor Murray. Will there be an additional resource to help support what it is we're trying to do here? Without that, I don't think we're going to succeed, because we're already very ragged as it is with police cover in the Western Isles.
Okay, thanks, Norman. Thanks. Just, do you want to come back? Did you want to come back there, Donald?
Just very briefly on
just very quickly.
point. I do need to clarify that the Bairnshoes takes is a model of taking together existing services around child protection investigation. And as Caroline mentioned in an earlier response, it's focused on the Scottish Child Interview model. So specifically in the context of Bairnshoes, the police resource will be the police resource that's there for the conducting of child protection investigations. And what it does is bring the social work, police, health, and any other services such as counselling required in a child protection investigation, all under one house-style environment that recognises the rights and needs of the young people involved in these processes. That stands separate to the wider debate around police resources and antisocial behaviour that sits beyond the specifics of the Bairnshoes itself. So I think we need to just create that distinction, that the report and the presentation around Bairnshoes is around the matters of child protection and child protection investigation. And these are matters for the police to determine the resourcing of as part of the Bairnshoes project.
Thanks, Don. Right, I'll just bring Callum in, and then we'll probably bring this to a close because time's going on here. And so,
thanks, Chair. I think some of it has what I was going to say has already brought up. First of all, I share the principles and the vision behind Bairnshoes, and thanks very much, Caroline, for bringing this before our attention today. I do also share the concerns highlighted, first of all, by Councillor McCormack regarding moving pointers out to Behead. I don't, like him, in a geographical context, I don't think that Behead is the centre of Stornoway, and that's a concern, first of all. Also, what Councillor Crichton has mentioned about the finance. I noticed that in the financial statement here, that already 187,000 has been procured, and there is a submission of a bid for 400,000 to 500,000, significantly more. I don't know if the finances have been brought into the refurbishing or of pointers. How much, first of all, will this cost? Will it be within budget of redoing that? That's the first question. The second one is in 5.1. It shows that it tells about the vision of Bairnshoes and the people, the individuals who are going to use it. And I see that there, it says, first of all, that they are the victims of or witnesses to abuse or violence, as well as children under the age, this is a significant one here, as well as children under the age of criminal responsibility, whose behaviour has caused significant harm or abuse. Now, there's a significant difference in age between those people. You have the children who could be as young as 3 or 4, and then you've got the age group, which is teenagers. Are teenagers going to go willingly to a place called Bairns House, along with, I'm just mentioning that as, I would like to know more about who you talk about, Carol Ann, as these children under the age of criminal responsibility. Is it these children that are causing concerns in our community at present, which we've highlighted here and it's already been mentioned by one of the councillors here? Or who are they? Just a little bit of clarification on that one.
Yeah.
And the first one is the financial aspect of it.
Okay. In terms of age of criminal responsibility, we're talking about children who are 12 years and under. So if those children, so part of one of the Bairns House standards is that children who come under the age of criminal responsibility are interviewed and supported through the Bairns House, which, you know, very much his ethos is around about being child-centred. The whole refurbishment element of it that we talk about is about ensuring that it's a welcoming environment, it's child-friendly and it's child-centred, and offering a therapeutic environment where children at the point of entry of being involved in child protection processes feel a sense of belonging and they feel safe within that environment. Children who are under the age of criminal responsibility, who potentially have committed a serious, and again, there's consideration given to what constitutes, you know, a criminal act. So we are talking about significant, you know, events. You know, and again, I think I would echo what Donald had mentioned earlier. We can't mix, we can't get confused about what the Bairns House function is. The Bairns House function is around about children who have been harmed, or children under the age of criminal responsibility perhaps have harmed another child, and we use that environment for that purpose. It's not for using the environment in an antisocial behaviour sense, where children are getting into trouble in the community and coming to the attention of the police. Yes, we would use it in relation to the child protection element if children have come to significant harm. So we need to make that distinction very, very clearly. So hopefully that clarifies what you're asking me in relation to age of criminal responsibility. In terms of the budget, yes, it does, you know, the budget for 23-24 is comes at the end of a year. It's not in relation, the launch of the Pathfinder, as I mentioned earlier, was in November. So that budget is reflective of that, the time period up until the end of the financial year 2024. I don't profess to be an expert in the budget. You know, if there's any questions that I can take back to Jack, then so be it, and we can come back on that. So in relation to the 24-25 budget, obviously that's looking at a whole financial year, so therefore that does look substantially more than the 23-24 budget. But if there's any particular questions around about that, I'm happy to take them and take them back to Jack and come back to you on that.
Okay, you're happy?
That's
I mean, yeah, just
That's a clarification,
yeah.
particularly on the users of it.
Okay.
I was thinking there would be more than just those who suffered abuse, as you say. So that's the difference. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, thanks.
I can just maybe very quickly comment on the financial aspect of it as well. As Caroline has mentioned, that this initial part of the grant covers the latter part of a financial year and establishes the project and covers parts of the capital and revenue costs. The budget for 24-25 is being prepared as a funding proposal at the moment and will include further capital to complete refurbishment and ongoing revenue costs for staffing. So it breaks down across further capital and revenue.
Okie dokie. Right. Okay. If there's no more questions, right. Well, this will be the last one because we've got to move on here because we're nearly an hour on this one.
Not a question, but
Yep.
it's clarification. And it's been mentioned here, and I've accepted it myself, that the police are understaffed. I don't think that's the case, and I think we need to get our facts right.
Okay, thanks, Ray. Yeah, I mean, that's really one for Police Scotland. That's not really out with our control to a large extent. So in terms of funding, in terms of resource, that's really for them to look at. Okay, right. So we'll move on. Do members agree to note the recommendations at 3.1 of the report? Thank you. Right, we'll move on to the next item, which is Rowntree House inspection outcome. And this item relates to the Rowntree House inspection outcome. Maxwell Smart will speak to the report and answer any questions. Is Maxwell? Just put your mic on. Yeah, that's it. You're on. Okay, thanks, Maxwell. Thanks. Cheers. Thanks, Caroline.
I speak, councillors.
Yep, just speak. Yep,
sorry.
Speak to the report. Yep.
Yeah. In many respects, I will own my very recent arrival in the island. I've only actually been in post for the last 3.5 months. During that time, the inspection report from the Care Inspectorate came out in regards to Rowntree and US. Very, very positive report in regards to care and sport that was being offered by the project. In fact, the Care Inspectorate lauded the professionalism of staff in the care and sport that was being offered there.
Okay, thanks, Maxwell. Does anybody have any questions for Maxwell at all? No? Okay. Do members agree to note the recommendation at 3.1? Thanks. Thanks a lot, Maxwell. Thanks for your help. Cheers, man. Cheers. Right, we'll move on to item 6, which is local residential facility project update. Oh, and Mr. Smart will also speak to the next report, which is in relation to the local residential facility project update, and will answer any questions thereafter. Just put your mic on there, yeah, and that's it.
Hello, yes. This item has been brought to committee really, which is an update on the review of the overall care estate for the island. So that's right the way down from Lewis, right the way down to Barra. I was asked to undertake the commencement of a project to look at the overall resources and supports. My service title is Children's Services Manager for Resources, and I've been asked to look at various aspects of the effectiveness and support for children, whether that be accommodated residentially or whether with comorbid needs in relation to complex care. Now, the overall looking at the care resources within the Comhairle is really quite a complex one, quite a detailed one that I think I've tried to capture in report. None of the conclusions are available at this stage. I'm reviewing the overall processes of what the needs are of the youngsters actually involved, what resources we have to match that, what therapeutic components of care will be required, and the service demand that will be needed. Therefore, presently looking at various items that are contained within the report, which is therapeutic foster care, consideration of a complex care residential facility and consideration of potentially a looked after facility of support to try and encompass an overarching philosophy of care for youngsters that concentrates and supports belonging, the building of competence and mastery skills, the understanding and creation of autonomy, and the development of altruism and generosity within our young people.
Okay, thanks, Maxwell. Does anybody have any questions? Councillor Gordon Murray.
Thanks, Chair. Not a member of your committee, but totally welcome this review and look forward to its findings. I might have missed it, but any idea when it will be presented, the findings would be presented? Thanks.
It's hoped that the findings of this project will be presented in June of this year.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, Maxwell. Right. Does anybody else have any questions? No. Right. Okay, so do members agree to note the report? Yeah, thanks. Right, we'll move on to item 7. And this is a report by HM Inspectors of Education at Bunscoil, Laxadale and Scolari Laxadale. This report relates to the outcome of the inspection at Bunscoil and Scolari Laxadale and by His Majesty's Inspectors from Education Scotland. And Ms. Kathleen MacLeod is available to speak to the report and answer any questions. Hi, Kathleen. How's it going? But you might have to sit, Julian.
Hi, Mackinra. The purpose of the report is to inform the Comhairle on the outcome of the inspection report for Bunscoil Lachastal and Scolari Lachastal. HM inspectors visited the setting on the 29th of May until the 2nd of June. This was a full inspection module and they were present for 5 days. They had 4 focus quality indicators, which were leadership for change, learning teaching assessment, ensuring wellbeing, equality and diversity, raising attainment and achievement, and in the nursery it was securing progress. All grades were positive and they were awarded good for each of those. Key strengths identified were that the head of school and staff leads change well and that this has a positive impact on the school, that the children engage in a rich range of learning experiences that have a positive impact on attainment, the staff leadership skills in Gaelic immersion and partnership working in developing health and wellbeing with external recognition. The next steps included to close further gaps in attainment, to have a strategic overview of the curriculum, to review total immersion and play, and to further develop the skills in Gaelic to raise attainment for Gaelic learners. The school have worked to, and nursery have worked to develop an action plan to overtake those recommendations in the report, and they'll be supported by myself and the early years team.
Okay, thanks, Kathleen. Does anybody have any questions? Was everyone happy? Councillor Gordon Murray.
Chair.
Beat you to it today.
Mr.
No, you go first. No, I'm only Joseph.
I'm just a couple of points. I'm so happy that the inspectorate have picked up that Laxdale Primary School and the Scolari is a caring, inclusive and nurturing school in which children can be ambitious and creative. I think that's a very good and positive line to describe the school. It was just a general point in terms of the various inspections that go on. Do you think, Chair, that primary schools in general have more inspections than they should have? I get a lot of feedback that schools are primary schools are inspected quite a lot, and it maybe stifles staff development and staff putting together learning plans, etc. So I'm just putting the point across that I think that maybe primary schools have more inspections than is required. Thanks.
Okay, I can't answer that myself. It would have to be some Kathleen or someone, but I think that's just something for Education Scotland really to look at. Yeah. And who else? Councillor Callum McClure. Oh, you want to speak?
You
No,
want me
you
to comment
speak.
on that,
Oh,
Chair?
you, if you want to comment, yeah, if you go ahead, if you've got a comment.
I appreciate Councillor Murray's points, and I'm sure head teachers of primary schools would more than welcome that consideration. But in reality, whilst at the moment we are seeing quite a significant what's perceived as inspection burden across the school estate, that is reflective of there having previously been a pause in inspection during the COVID pandemic and post-pandemic years. Taking Laxdale School as an example, and I'm sure the head of school is here today, Mary McLeod, would be able to give an exact date of that, but it is quite some time since Laxdale had previously had an inspection. So there are differing views around the degree of inspection and, for that matter, the actual burden that the inspection itself brings. In some quarters, the focus is more on the burden of the inspection process itself rather than the frequency of it. This is something that forms part of the education reform agenda nationally at the moment, and it is something that the Scottish Government is working with Education Scotland on as we continue to await clarity on what a new inspection body will look like and whether that sits entirely independently of the new curriculum agency and how it interfaces with a new qualifications agency. And these are questions that we still do not have answers to. The Scottish Government ran another consultation on this matter in December and had final submissions just before Christmas, and we still await the findings of that consultation in terms of the national views on the inspection model. So we have intentions to brief members and bring information on education reform to Chamber, either in a report or in a seminar, but we still await clarity from Scottish Government on what the education reform agenda will exactly be before we can share that.
Okay, thanks, John. Councillor McLean.
Thanks.
You're in.
Yeah. Thanks, Chair. Yeah, but first of all, Mick, I congratulate you on having read the full report. Actually, the staff and the head of school has done quite a lot of work in order to get good. I noticed that in the full report they talk about the pace of learning, and maybe you can highlight what that is, what we're talking about in the pace of learning. But my criticism would be, having read the full report, why on earth did you not argue the case with the HMI? When I read the report, it deserves very good. So in my day, and some people here, we used to have headbanging times with HMIE in order to up the grades. I say that as well for the Nicholson and some of the aspects. Because when I read the Laxdale report, and especially when I read what the children think of the school, what the teachers think of the school, and what the parents think, and that's always something to go on. That's what I look at. When I see the responses to that as well, they're very happy with the education. And for HMI then just to give you a good, my criticism would be is, maybe it's against you, Kathleen, maybe. Why were you not strong enough to argue with these people and try to get better than you've got? So that's.
I think Kathleen. I mean, she doesn't strike me as a fighting type. So I mean, she's making her case, but she'll make her case. I'm sure she'll fight a corner for Murray and for the rest of the departments and the rest of the department and schools. And I think it's more of a subtler approach. I think maybe not so much of a headbanging approach. I think it's more of a subtle approach. It's I think I can't imagine that Kathleen would be someone who wouldn't fight a corner. So I think that's probably just done in a different way, maybe than it was in the old days. Though. Okay, right. So if there's no other questions, is there anybody else who wants to come?
Can I maybe just mention on that?
Yeah, go on.
Just Chair, sorry to extend the discussion, but the expectations of Education Scotland and Inspectorate are very high, and I'm sure colleagues who were witness to these discussions at the time will testify. These fights were had, and the case was made. We felt that definitely in some aspects of the work in Laxdale School there should have been very good gradings. And these were challenged. They were challenged by the head of school. They were challenged by the executive head. They were challenged by ourselves. However, these are not our judgments. They are an external judgment of Education Scotland, and we have a duty to respect that judgment. The issues that they continue to relay is consistency and evidence, and we are required to make sure that when their expectation of a very good is to be awarded, it has to be that that is consistently evidenced across every aspect of the school and every aspect of the quality indicator, which is the hardest challenge, and then that is robustly evidenced. And these are challenges, and there's no doubt, and it's been spoken about in this chamber many times previously, that the raising of the bar of expectation and inspection is challenging. But we must respect the judgment of the external agency and would reassure members that we have always fighting the corner of our schools to make sure that their good work is recognised.
Thanks. Right, Councillor Angus.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. This is a very good report, and I congratulate the head teacher and her staff and the executive head teacher. The impression I have is that we are drifting a bit into the kind of scenario that currently exists in England, where one-word descriptions of a school have caused a real upset and indeed caused a death in England. And now in England, they are reviewing the way they do things. And I think in the discussions around the new exam board and such like, that the inspectorate will also come under some considerable pressure to be a bit more, say a bit more about schools other than just offer one word answer in different situations. I don't think that's very satisfactory, and it doesn't at all reflect, my own experience in the past. I'd say this in general in regard to this report and the report on the Nicholson Institute. In my own time, inspections were a lot about discussions. Of course, there was observation of teachers and so on and so forth. But the idea of being inspected was to enhance and support the school, not crucify it. And I sometimes think myself that in seeking to raise standards in schools, the inspectorate lose sight of what their purpose really is. And it's to have a dialogue with teaching staff and assist teaching staff to reach higher standards. And I'm hoping that when the Scottish Government comes out with its new suggestions as to how all of this is going to happen in the future, that there will be a more collegiate approach to inspections in future.
Okay, thanks, Angus. Right, we'll move on. So do members agree to the recommendations at 3.1? Right, thanks. And thanks to Kathleen and Mary for coming in. Thanks a lot. Right, so next is item 8, and this report relates to the outcome of the inspection at the Nicholson Institute by Her Majesty's Inspectors from Education Scotland. And Marie-Claire is available to speak to the report and answer any questions. Thanks, Marie-Claire.
Matthew, thank you very much.
You're in.
Thank you. The purpose of the report is to inform the Comhairle on the outcome of the HM Inspectors from Education Scotland, as published on the 16th of January. This was a short model inspection which took place from the 2nd of October to the 4th of October, and the two key quality indicators were 2.3, learning and teaching and assessment, and 3.2, raising attainment and achievement. Her Majesty Inspectors gathered evidence to evaluate the work of the Nicholson Institute against these quality indicators from How Good Is Our School For, and the letter of findings confirms that they were assessed as satisfactory on the 6-point evaluation scale. Outlined in the report 6.1, the key strengths are there from the inspection, and following that 6.2 outlines the identified areas for improvement. Working closely with the Department of Officers, the school has now devised an action plan to address the agreed areas for improvement, and a governance group will meet weekly to oversee the delivery of this action plan and ensure progress within each of the areas. The inspectors have indicated an intention to carry out a further inspection within 6 months of the publication of the report around the enhanced provision. I'm very happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Marie-Claire? Okie dokie. Right. Is there anyone? Oh, right. Who's right? It's nothing. No luck. So someone will have to switch off a mic there, please. Can you just thanks, Cara? Yep. Thanks. Right. Okay, George. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair.
Ray next.
Are you satisfied with this report? It's just outweighing weakness. As it seems aspiring to mediocrity almost.
I would hope from reading the report you'll see that there was a lot of positives from the inspection. So we did feel that the inspection team gave us a fair evaluation of where the school was at and a good direction of areas for improvement.
Who was next? Ray, Councillor Ray Mackenzie. If you'll mic off, please. All right, cheers. Thanks, Ray.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, well, I'm not going to go into the grade or satisfactory or strengths and all that, but the one point that was highlighted was the fact that, and I think I should read the sentence, this should include planning appropriately for young people who require additional support with their learning, ESN. And as all of us in the room here will recall, we made £100,000 of a cut in the ASN at the budget last year. Now, the majority voted for that, and we've got to accept that. But I would hope when we look at the budget again later on this month, that that 100,000 certainly not be made, but maybe an additional 100,000 or whatever would increase the budget for ASN and not make a cut like we did last year. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Ray. Thanks for that point. And I think it was Councillor Callum McLean next. Who's got the mic on?
Sorry.
Thanks. Thanks, Callum. You're in.
Thanks, Chair. I have a number of questions to put on this report here. First of all, it's to do with some of the statistics that come up here. Is it true that there are, as it says in the report, there are 42.2% of pupils have additional needs within the school? That seems to me, in the term of our Nicholson Institute, very high. Is that is a correct figure? Can I, who do I go to? Marie Claire, have you got that?
Do you have that? Or is it Jenny here? Just
that's in September 2022.
Sorry, yeah, Angus can speak. Yeah. Angus.
Hi, Councillor McLean. Yes, that was a confirmed figure at the last census. National figure is 40%. We are 42%. We are reviewing that. There was a number of issues raised with the inspectors where we were way off what would be expected. In some parts, more able pupils, this comes under ASN. We had 20 supposedly. We'd expect 7 in our school. That's been reviewed. So a review of all our assignations of ASN is being undertaken at the moment, but we are slightly above the national figure.
That just goes on to what Mr. Mackenzie said. I voted against that, by the way, as well. The second thing is, could you give me the term for enhanced provision?
You come in on that one.
What is enhanced provision?
Maybe clarify on Councillor McLean's point and the previous one. I also want to clarify, as Angus Mackay said there, that whilst it seems like a high rate of ASN in the Nicholson, it is only slightly above the national average for secondary education. And that's also sometimes artificially inflated because any learners requiring any modifications or adjustments for exams are often classified and put onto ASN registers. So whilst the child may not require any significant support during the course of the year, if they require any specific arrangements to undertake exams, that can also increase the numbers that may appear to have ASN. And as has been said, that is under review as it stands. Enhanced provision relates to additional provision within the school in terms of meeting the needs of severe and complex needs learners within the Nicholson. So that is a provision that's there with enhanced facilities and measures to support learners with the most complex needs.
Thanks. Can I carry on?
Yeah, quickly. Yeah,
I'll try to.
there's a couple of others who want to come in yet.
In the report, I look at the enhanced provision in 2.3. I've read the full report. I don't say that I take it in all of it, but I'm just looking now at the full report 2.3. It's learning, teaching and assessment within enhanced provision. Now I'm going to make a comment here. Comment is, a number of years ago, it was a decision of council to close Sandwich provision. And the pupils or the young people who attended Sandwich, particularly if they're over into secondary stage, they were to be transferred to the Nicholson. Is that correct? That's correct. That, and again, I objected to that because I didn't think that the Nicholson, with its capacity for pupils, was able to cope with and provide for them. I believe that that has come out in this report because the Nicholson has not got the facilities, was not made at the time it was made. And I was on the committee for the WISP schools. And that there was no provision, there was not the provision in the Nicholson for that they came into the Nicholson. I'm just wondering, I'm just putting this as a possibility that has come home to roost in this HMI report. Because as I see it, I look at 2.3, learning, teaching and assessment. Within that, the enhanced provision, that support for learning, you'll see as well, it says in the third bullet point there, staff absences. Within that, the support for learning, you'll see that within the staff responses to in the report, and especially within support for learning support. So what I'm saying is that, again, I'm going to ask another question here. There was I've been on LNCT for a number of years, and there was to be a report being put up. I'm sure Mr. McCormack can remember it because he was chair then, for the redesign of support for learning support. That was coming up. It was coming up, and it was coming up. I haven't seen it. Maybe some other people have seen this report. So I'm just bearing that in mind, that in the provision of the Nicholson, and I put this forward, have the Nicholson got the provision? Have they got the facilities? Have they got the space for this element, this enhanced provision, as we call it? I'm asking that first.
In terms of the question that you've concluded on there, Councillor McLean, the Nicholson has provision in terms of that it has space available, but in our own assessment and included in the report that provision is not currently sufficient, and it's been identified, and those of you who are present for discussion on the capital programme had us note that £500,000 has been set aside within the capital programme, with the main project to be funded from that improvement in enhanced provision facilities for the physical aspects of the building within the Nicholson. That project is getting underway. A first site visit took place last week to scope out the works that would be required to make sure that the provision is available as should be. There is provision, but it's a provision that we believe should be better, and we have sought funding in the capital programme to make that provision better.
Thanks, Chair. I know. Thanks, Mr. MacLeod. I know you've taken over this, and I'm glad to hear that is the case. You're inheriting a legacy prior to what you were as well. Because as I read the report, especially in enhanced provision, it is quite devastating, especially for the staff. To be quite honest with you, who are doing their best, who are trying their best, but as you rightly say, we haven't got the provision, the facilities, and the enablement to do that, and that's our responsibility. As a. The other one is
define the budget, define the money for that.
I'm going to try to do this. I promise this is going to be my last. VC. What does VC mean? It's in broad general education under literacy and numeracy. It gives instances where the majority of people, which is in line with VC, is much lower than VC, substantially lower than VC. What's VC? Can anybody enlighten me on that? Am I missing out on something?
Conference.
VC is virtual comparator in
virtual
that context, which is not an exact physical comparison. It is a computer-generated comparison of all the data set available nationally into a virtual school that would be roughly equivalent to the Nicholson.
That's right. I got
so
familiar.
it's very widely used in Insight and for the publication of senior phase data, and it's used often in that. But in the context of this, they're using it to benchmark.
Yeah, I put in my question about the paper on learning support. Is there a revision of this? Have I missed it in LNCT, or has it come through?
We're kind of I was just to say we're kind of moving off the point now of the inspection. So I was wanting to try and keep us on the point of the inspection.
That's got the point. That's very relative to the inspection, Chair. Because if I see it as I see the Nicholson, it's in learning support and enhanced provision where I would find great concern, and it's where I've had concern from parents on the provision for them in the Nicholson, which I'm hoping to meet the head teacher on Friday.
Okay.
So
it's just to move it on.
Yeah, but what I say to you, Chair, is that this is very important.
It's vital. It's actually,
yeah,
I mean, that we've got
I think
to
it's time, instead of pushing it on, it's vitally important that we actually get to where we can get to as a council, where we should put in the support for the Nicholson in what has come out with the HMIE.
So that, I mean, that's incumbent on all of us to if we're looking at budget, as Ray was saying, in terms of going forward, in terms of resources, given resources to allow that to happen. So that's something that we have to be looking at closely now in the budget coming up as we're going forward. So
because to be honest with you, Chair, it's significant when you look at the data.
Oh yeah,
data exhibits to us. It exhibits to us as well with what effect it's having on parents, pupils, and particularly staff. When I see things like staff absences, and especially because staff have got it hard today. And I would say today, if I was thought of going in for teaching, I would have second thoughts, to be quite honest with you. But to be honest with you, they're having a hard task, and so therefore we should be supporting them instead of quitting them.
Okay, well, that's something we all have to look at, every one of us in this chamber. So all councillors. So that's something we can take forward. Certainly we'll be looking at that going forward. So I think Gordon was actually next. If I can bring Gordon in next. Thanks, Callum. Thanks. Callum, can you just switch your mic on, please? Yeah, thanks.
Thanks very much, Chair. And I'm not a member of your committee. When I read the report, what struck me is that I feel that the Comhairle aren't supporting the school enough in terms of the ASN provision. And that obviously came to fruition at the last budget when we took 100k out of the budget. And I think that had we had a more detailed impact assessment prior to the decision, maybe the decision might have been to not make the cut. I think there's a couple of references in the report relating to the lack of training of the staff in the department. And ASN, obviously you'll know, has very complex needs, and if there's a lack of training to address some of these needs, it can be quite challenging. The report states there is a need to improve the professional learning and training opportunities for all staff, including support to ensure their skills match the needs of the young people. Now, if the staff in this department, the ASN department, aren't suitably trained, this will create stressful situations and for the student and the support staff. And I would imagine this maybe accounts for a lot of the staff absences that have been referred to previously, where the staff may be stressed that they feel maybe a bit out of their depth because of the lack of training. And as the report says, there's a significant staff absence in the enhanced provision. And it has been pointed out to me that there has been job adverts going up on the website that haven't been filled. So I would, conclude that staff in this part of the school are obviously feeling stressed and need more support and training. So I really stress, I do hope that when the leader finally presents his budget, that there will be no further cuts to ASN, and that maybe the 100k cut, as maybe implied by Councillor Mackenzie, is reinstated as an urgent measure, and that the training challenges are addressed as soon as possible. I think we need to support the school more. Thanks. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Gordon. Thanks for those points. I think Councillor McCormack was next.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, I'm very much going to speak in support of what my colleagues have already said, because the fault here is undoubtedly with this call and not with anybody else. And the point I would make is that we have been cutting the education budget since 2010, year on year on year. And when it comes to budget setting, it is the education department that takes 50% of the cut every time. You cannot keep on doing that year after year after year and expect to have an education service as good as it should be. And I think that is something we have to bear in mind. Councillor McLean's point about Sandwick Hill, that was a cut deliberately done in order to save money, and there was an opportunity to move into a facility in the Nicholson Institute. It was done quite deliberately. We discussed it all in here. It would have been 100 times better if we'd been able to, instead of cutting the facility, enhance the facility. But we were just not in a position to do that. And I am myself really very, very concerned at the state of education, in that when we discussed informally in this chamber the potential for cuts in this coming round, the director indicated to us that he had found half of the cuts that he was required to find, and he had absolutely no idea where he was going to find the rest. And that is what is happening here. We're actually cutting into areas of work where we shouldn't really be making any cuts at all as an organisation, and that troubles me greatly. And the suggestion that Councillor Ray Mackenzie made, that we reinstate the £100,000 if we can do that, I definitely think we should be doing that. Despite all of these difficulties and the difficulties faced by staff, I think back to my own time, we had one class in the Nicholson Institute which was called a special class. And now there are 40% of the pupils who are in that category, if you like. I mean, that's an incredible pressure on staff, a huge pressure on staff, and as you say, Councillor McLean, I'm not sure I would want to go into a situation like that. I would find it very difficult. What astounds me is, however, and this is not really reflected in the report in any kind of way, is that the children leaving the Nicholson Institute, 97% of them go into the location that they want to go to when they leave school. That is an amazing achievement. It really is an amazing achievement. And I know from talking to my colleagues on the mainland that they would give their eye teeth to have that kind of statistic for their school. So I agree with you all. We have to support the Nicholson Institute and make sure that it has all of the resources that it requires. I have no idea how Mr. MacLeod is going to manage that, but I hope that he can give us some ideas about what we have to see. And it's going to be difficult decisions for us because it will affect other areas. I don't have an answer to that, but I would agree with my colleagues. We need to support here. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Angus. Did you want to come back there?
Yeah, maybe just clarifying a couple of the recent points. Firstly, in terms of staffing, we are constantly looking to make sure that we are trying to staff the resources and the requirements of our facilities appropriately. There have been 3 appointments, 2 vacancies in the Nicholson Institute in recent days, and these posts are being filled. In terms of training, I may seek some comment from the head teacher who's with us here today, but all staff are subject to appraisal and professional review and development, and training needs are able to be identified through these. My understanding of the issues that were highlighted through the inspection is more akin to increasing resilience, which is linking to the staff absence issues that have already been identified. So to be able to have more staff trained in more aspects of their roles to create greater resilience across the service, but there can be an additional comment made on that if required. I appreciate the comments that Councillor McCormack has made in relation to finance, but I would also highlight that if you're reading through the report in its entirety, and then having been working with the school before and after the inspection, these are not solely monetary issues, and the support is important to acknowledge, but it's not a solely financial matter to address the issues that we wish to address and improve at the Nicholson. We need to look at assessment processes, at structures, at responsibilities, and there is an action plan in place that the head teacher and the head of education have been working on, and we will continue to monitor that very frequently as we try and deliver on the areas that HMI have assisted us in identifying. Whilst finance is an important element of that, and I know it's something that members feel strongly about, it has to be about more than adding solely finance alone to the project. Not to say that wouldn't be welcome if any member wishes to lobby for that, but these are challenging times, and we understand that the education service has to address its own areas of responsibility in terms of managing a balanced budget for the whole Comhairle.
Okay, thanks, Donald. I'd just like to bring in Councillor Crichton because it's been waiting quite a long time. So thanks, Donald.
I'm not a member of your committee. Just to ask Mr. MacLeod, are all pupils that require additional support currently receiving it?
I would maybe ask the staff to clarify that directly in the first instance.
Well, the short answer to that is yes. However, needs change very quickly for young people. So that's why we put a lot of work into assessing needs for every young person, and different things can have impacts on them, things that we're not always in control of. If I could just go back to the training issue, part of the issue for training for staff has been accessing appropriate training, which is not always provided by education, but quite often is provided by partnership agencies, and where perhaps health or another agency would have provided support and training for young people, when perhaps their budgets were bigger, that resource is not always available. So there have been individual discussions for young people where bespoke training packages need to be designed and provided, and those discussions are ongoing to meet the needs of the young people who we have in the school.
Okay, thanks a lot. Thanks, Jenny. Right, is there anyone else? Councillor, last time.
Thank you very much for bringing me in, Chair. It's a very pertinent question Mr. Crichton put there. And I'm taking what teachers are saying, what pupils are saying, and what parents are saying. If you've got, as you have, not general education, now moving into nationals as well, you've got classes of 20 to 30. And in that class, you've got a range of abilities, ranging from, how can I put it, less than average, I just say that, to above average. It is almost impossible, and I think it is impossible for the teacher to cope, for an individual teacher to cope with that. Why the HMIE are not bringing that out in their inspectorate only brings me back to say that they're covering up for the Scottish Government. In other words, we need more teachers. And the teachers, in other words, you can say it, 20 to 30. I know of teachers who have between 20 and 30 pupils in higher geography, for instance. Not in this region.
Yeah, no.
And they've got all aspects and trying to teach a higher syllabus to that. In Mr. McCormack's day, that wasn't the case. It was they were streamed in these days. You're not supposed to stream them today, but that's the way we are, and it is not coping. And I've got complaint. I'm sure that here in the council, should have complaint after complaint saying that their children, the needs of their children aren't being met. I'm sorry to say it, but it's the way in which we are governed and the way in which the curriculum is. It's an overcrowded curriculum. See that in the primary school particularly, and in the secondary, and we need to do something about it. I'm hoping that this is going to happen soon.
Yeah, well, hopefully the reviews will identify those things and change things, but we'll have to see what the review brings out. So, right, if there's no other, sorry. Oh no, right, okay, Norman.
Yeah. Thanks again, Chair. Yeah, I mean, I just want to echo what everybody's been saying. I think in our advancement of our education system, we're trying to be all things to all people, and we're failing our pupils because of the lack of resources. I asked at the last series of meetings, was it true that 40% of our kids in the Nicholson had an ASN diagnosis? And I was flabbergasted to have that confirmed. It just shows you where the goalposts have moved now and how difficult it has become for teachers to address everybody at every level of ability in every class. It's like policing today. It's almost impossible. People's hands are getting tied. And I accept what Councillor Mackenzie and Councillor Murray have said about the £100,000 cut to the ASN budget, and that 50% of the cuts are borne by education, but education gets 50% of the overall budget just about anyway. So, you know, if you're making cuts across the board, which have been forced upon us, you know, let's make no bones about this. We're having to make cuts year on year, and it's not because we want to make cuts. These cuts have been forced upon us. So we do tend to take easy targets like ASN. But the one shining jewel we've always had in the Western Isles has been the Nicholson Institute and its academic standards. And every person has spoken so highly of the Nicholson Institute over 100 years, and the history of the school goes back and reflects that. So I think if we're to do anything else as a Comhairle, supporting the Nicholson, you know, to make sure that the academic standards, and again, going back to where the reports are, I think they tend to err on the side of caution, shall we say, is to give them a little bit of manoeuvrability for the next time they come to visit you, so they've got somewhere positive to go. You know, there's possibly an element of that in it. We as a Comhairle have been slaughtered by the likes of Accounts Scotland and the Accounts Commission, you know, because we wonder ourselves where we go when it comes to this reporting. You know, we get hammered. Here are your failings, you know, you could do better. I mean, across Scotland, I would like to see how many schools were good or above good. You know, I mean, are they setting that benchmark so they've got somewhere else to go to say at the next election, they'll say, well, look, our schools have improved massively over the last 4 years because here are the results. You always give yourself somewhere to go to falsify any statistics. I'm not saying the Scottish Government are looking to falsify statistics. Heaven forbid they would lie about something.
Not helpful, no.
But supporting the Nicholson Institute, I think, should be paramount amongst our next budget setting.
Okay, right. Thanks, Norrie. Right. Susan, Councillor Susan Thompson, right.
I just want to challenge the assertion that HMIE are covering up for the Scottish Government. I don't want silence to suggest that we all agree with that. I have seen no evidence to support that assertion.
Okay, thanks, Susan. Thanks.
Sorry,
Councillor Francis.
Thanks very much, Chair. I wasn't going to speak because I've been very close to the school for a long number of years, but I do think we have to be careful about portraying teaching as an impossible profession. I'm beginning to wonder how I managed to do it for 35 years without being too gloomy. It is not a profession that we want to suggest to young people coming through that they shouldn't be coming into. It's a marvellously rewarding profession, and it's a profession that I certainly got a lot out of, and I'm very glad that I spent my years in education. I think we also need to be careful that we're comparing like with like. Many of us, myself included, attended the Nicholson at a time when it wasn't actually a comprehensive school. There was a vocational stream, and we might say maybe we were ahead of our time having a vocational stream in the Lewis Castle School, and we lost that just when it started to become fashionable, and everybody else caught up on DYW, and we'd been doing it all along. There were young people in Lewis who never came to the Nicholson, who went straight from a 2-year secondary into Lewis Castle School, and we also took the cream of the young people from Barra, Uist and Harris. So probably results at that time when they were at their highest, the famous picture of the whole school out in the courtyard celebrating, I think being the best in Scotland at a particular indicator. I can't remember what it was now. I was my 5th year myself at the time. The school was not the school it is now. And all schools reflect the societies that make them. And I think it is important that we support all our schools, but we have to be realistic too in realising that times have changed, and we cannot really compare the one special class that was in the school at one point with the 40% of people, as Mr Mackay pointed out. Some of these pupils, and Mr MacLeod too, are purely on that 40% list because they need maybe a scribe to do their exam, to write their exams for them. So we shouldn't, I think it's important we shouldn't be too gloomy. And what I'm certainly not saying don't support, because yes, of course, all our schools need support, and I would be delighted to see as much support as possible going into a school that means a great deal to me. But I think we need to be careful that we're not saying teaching is an impossible job. It's a very difficult job, it's a very challenging job, but it's a very rewarding job as well.
Okay, thanks, Vince. Kenneth, I'm going to ask you to come in, but if it's not related directly to the report, I'm going to cut you off because we're running out of time here, and we've had a really extensive discussion on this. So is it related directly to the report?
No, it's just a comment on how things are measured, so I'll leave it be.
Okay, thanks a lot. Cheers. Right, I'm going to bring this to a close now. So do members agree the recommendation at 3.1? Right, what I want to do is I want to take a quick break here now for 10 minutes, just to give everybody a bit of comfort break, before we move on to any other items. So if we just get 10 minutes, get another cup of coffee, whatever, or whatever you want, just to have a break. Item 9. Item 9 on the agenda provides an update in relation to the proposed sports facility at Stornoway Primary and to clarify the current financial position of the project. Mr. Don MacLeod will speak to the report and answer any questions. Thanks, Don.
Thank you, Chair. This report provides an update to members on the current position in relation to the project to develop a new sports facility at Stornoway Primary, a project that we have been working on and in development for a number of years. The report confirms that in the timeline of the project that an initial 1.8 million had been set aside for the project. That had increased based on project modelling at the time to 1.95 million. And in the setting of the capital programme for 2023 to 2028, that a figure of 2 million had been set aside for the development of the project. The report provides information about what has happened since that time in terms of advancing the procurement of the tender for the tensile fabric structure, or TFS, as it's abbreviated to, and the commissioning of professional construction services, and the undertaking of survey work on site. There have been some issues in relation to the tendering process and in relation to insurances and professional indemnity that have resulted in time needing to be taken by the Comhairle in due diligence and in protection of its investment in such a large project to ensure that both the tendering process and insurance and indemnity from the contractors is adequate and in place for this project. It is in the work of the consultant quantity surveyor that detailed full price modelling is able to be now done. That moves the project from internal estimates to a full cost model, and in doing so identified that the plans as drawn at the time indicated a now development cost of 3.4 million. This was considerably higher than I'd expected to be, and was a reflection of a number of factors that are driving construction prices locally and nationally. The buildings projects team have been trying to investigate the full cost planning with the consultants, with the aim of trying to bring that back to a realistic reflection of the budget and the allocation and the capital programme of 2 million. In doing so, they have aimed to reduce the size of the building by 2 construction bays, resulting in a decrease of the size of the games hall itself from a 4-court hall to a 3-court hall, and in trying to make other adjustments to the overall project delivery cost. With contingencies and a risk pot, that now allows the project to stand at a total estimated 2.25 million, with the 2.25 million constituting the contingency and risk pot, which is required to be there. It is noted by the Comhairle itself, it's noted by the Education Department, by Parent Council and by others that it is a disappointment that the hall size could not be what was intended in terms of the costs of construction and what it is now confirmed to be at for the construction of a building of that size. It is important to note, however, that the building as proposed in the report and attached in appendix does still constitute more than 4 times increase of the available PE capacity for Stornoway Primary. It creates 2 additional very large PE spaces in addition to the PE space already in the school. It creates sufficient timetable PE for considerably more than is required of the school at the moment. The school currently requires 34 hours of primary PE. This establishment provides up to 75 hours in total, which provides enough for the school, for this early years provision, and for the potential for future growth. It also continues to meet and exceed the requirements of the Sport Scotland metrics for primary schools the size of Stornoway Primary. So whilst acknowledging that it's not of the scale that was initially proposed and the challenges that the development project has seen in terms of increasing costs, meaning that wasn't able to be progressed for the budget that the Comhairle has agreed, the report does set out some options for considering how the project can go forward. An important element sitting alongside the project is the Scottish Government's commitment to free school meal expansion to encompass universal free school meal expansion to encompass primary 6 and primary 7, as well as the current P1 to 5. An important element of creating additional capacity within Stornoway Primary for that expansion is the development of the sports complex to offset the need to do PE in the assembly hall. In the interest of that project, the Comhairle has applied for funding from the Universal Free School Meal Expansion Fund, with an element of that application being to support the additional cost of the facility at Stornoway Primary to allow for that offsetting of the dining demand for P6 and 7 free school meal expansion. That forms part of a wider project and includes investment in other aspects of Stornoway Primary's provision and at other schools as well. That application is still under consideration, and we expect to have an outcome of that by the end of this month. And that is a potential avenue for supporting the funding gap that's referenced in the report. So the report seeks consideration of the council in the updating of the building design to reflect the existing agreed 2 million budget, but also asks for consideration of proceeding at the cost of 2.25 million, subject to the securing of the free school meal expansion funding as described in the report. I'm happy to take questions from members.
Do anybody have any questions? Councillor Mackenzie.
Chairman, I'm shocked at this report because an agreement was made 2 years ago of a certain size, and Mr. MacLeod himself got in touch with people at the school and said 4 courts, fine, and that was it. That was accepted, and everybody was very happy. Hundreds of pupils and twice that number of parents, great. And then it came to 2 months later, it came to this council and it was agreed. And whatever's happened in costs in the meantime, and I don't believe the costs have just gone like that, 75%, because some costs are actually coming down now. But when it came back, it was agreed here in this chamber that that was ideal and everybody would agree to it. Started off at 8 requests for 8 votes, then it came down to 6. Finally, it was agreed between everybody, 4 votes. Now, it's not the fault of the school, the parents, the pupils, anybody else, people in here that you know, this report has come forward and that delays happened and all the rest of it. So I understand that the Parents' Council were only made aware of this a couple of days before the weekend, and that is not consultation. Consultation may have been done 2 years ago, but to present this all of a sudden a few days before the Education Committee is a disgrace, quite frankly. And a commitment has been made and a commitment should be kept, and that's the way it should stay. There should be consideration in prudential borrowing and, you know, other forms of financing this. How on earth, you know, somebody was either didn't have a clue about finance when they did the original thing, or we're now saying we really want to push this aside. We want to, you know, we're not going to give them what they want. I think this is completely wrong, and I would suggest that a proper consultation done with the members, with the members of the Parents' Council, the parents and the school staff, be done again to see if they accept 3.5 quotes, whatever it is, and not the original 4, which was promised. Now, I quite frankly feel that this report should be withdrawn.
Okay, thanks, Ray. It's certainly not a case of the Education Department. They're trying to push it to the side. I mean, obviously we've committed to this, and we're still committed to it, and we're actually still working to make it happen. But we've got to actually realise where we are financially here, you know. And we've just had a conversation here about ASN. So we'll put money into ASN, but we'll put money into a new facility at Stornoway Primary. When we'll put money, well, you know, where does the money come from? You know, at the end of the day, we have to be realistic about this. So, oh, sorry, I'll bring Donald in, but we have to think about this. You know, this is where we're at. These are the difficult decisions now we're all faced with. And as you say, that's the funding we've got. We have to work with what we've got. So everyone has to take consideration of that. And I'll just let Donald in.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Councillor Mackenzie, for your points. This is not a position that we would have desired to be in. The information that has been provided to members previously, either directly through myself or through other officers in relation to this, has been provided in good faith with information available at the time. The costings, the very origin costings of this came from an original proposal for a traditional construction block and roof building as an extension of the existing gym that added 1 court. That was not an acceptable development, but that's where the original notion of a potential development of 1.8 million came from. That 1.8 million then was taken as a figure, and exploration was undertaken of whether a tensile fabric structure could be developed instead. That would offer considerably more space. That at the time indicated that based on extrapolated figures and quotes from suppliers, indicated that up to a 4-court hall would be able to be achieved. These were good faith estimates taken and provided to the Education Department about what potentially could be achieved for 1.8 up to 1.95 million. My understanding of the decision that is in place in terms of the capital programme is that it's an investment of 2 million in sports facilities in Stornoway Primary. That does not necessarily determine the exact size of that facility in that decision. The figures that have been provided to us have been provided by professional external consultants that have been commissioned as part of the project. They are not back of an envelope calculations. They are a thorough line by line, item by item review of the development costs of the project undertaken by professional quantity surveyor consultants. These are reflective of the real life on island construction costs of such a project. And I am obliged to provide to the committee in this report a proposal that will respect the decision that is standing, and the standing decision to develop a sports facility for £2 million. It is for members to debate if you want to do something different to that. But looking at alternative costs, such as has been suggested in terms of potential borrowing, that has to be funded. That there has to be a revenue budget to service that borrowing, and that doesn't exist in existing education budgets. And whilst it's recognised that a forecourt hall is absolutely the desire, that figure came from what was at the time able to be achieved from the budget that had been identified. In reality, where we stand today, the proposed hall that's in the report meets the needs of the school and is big enough to accommodate all the required timetable PE, is big enough to provide additional capacity for early years, it's big enough to provide additional capacity for extracurricular activity, it's big enough to provide expansion capacity should the role grow in the future. But it's a matter for members to decide how you wish to proceed.
Start again. Sorry, Ray, you were out. Just start, say it again. Yeah,
Sorry.
that's it.
Can I ask what figure you're basing the complement of the school on? Is it the primary, or is it the extension with the nursery and the early years? And you know, we're not talking about 300 odd pupils. We're talking about near 600.
The school, the basis of the information in the report is from a few aspects. Firstly, it highlights in paragraph 6.8 that the school is statutorily required to be able to deliver 2 hours of high quality PE. That is able to be delivered at the moment, but it's challenging because it requires the use of the assembly hall as well as the PE hall in the school. The proposal, as it stands in the amended proposal in the report, creates 2 1.5 court additional spaces in addition to the PE hall that they already have. That creates 3 timetable PE spaces, and that gives up to 75 hours of timetable PE slots in the school, a school that currently requires 34. That additionality provides more than enough timetable capacity for the early years provision on site, for additional PE beyond the statutory 2 hours, and any additional extracurricular activity the school wishes to use, as well as I mentioned, any potential future role growth. The other metric that is in consideration is the advice in Scotland from Sport Scotland about the PE space that should be available for a school the size of Stornoway Primary, and they identify a 3-court space for a 3-stream school. This development provides 3 courts in the new hall, plus an additional court being retained in the existing provision.
2 points, actually. I didn't get a figure of the total number of pupils involved, but what consultation and when was the last consultation made with the school and the Parents' Council?
When I was informed of the revised figure in December 2023, I notified the office bearers of the Parent Council at that time, pre-Christmas. When it became clear that we were having to put a report together for this series, I then made sure that the Parent Council received the report and had the information provided to them. The school itself has been aware of this development. The Parent Council is a consulting stakeholder in this project, but I do have to clarify that this is a Comhairle 100% funded project, and it's for the Comhairle to determine how it wishes to proceed with it.
Okay, right. Councillor Johnson, Malcolm, Councillor. No, you just leave it on. Yeah, it must be somebody else. That's it. You're in.
Thanks, Chair. I attended a meeting of the Stornoway Primary Parents Committee last night, and they feel that they haven't been consulted at all. The parents of the children haven't been consulted, and this has been steamrollered through against their wishes. 1969, the school was built with an inadequate gym, inadequate showering, changing facilities, inadequate storage. And they feel that in years to come, they will regret having an inadequate games hall after they were promised things that started way back in 2012. And the sizes have gone down from 700 square meters to 470 square meters. And they feel that promises have not been delivered. And I think consultation must be given to the Parents' Council and through them to the actual parents and indeed the teachers who have to provide the facilities there. They've just been let down, and it's all down to money. So that's the way they look at it. I'll leave others to add those who were there can add on to what I've said.
Okay, thanks, Malcolm. Is anybody else?
Maybe comment on.
Yeah, do you want to comment? Yeah. Helmet. Just again, who comes?
I do want to just clarify a factual inaccuracy in what's and information that's been circulated and referenced there. The games hall, the total building proposal initially was 700 and I think it's just slightly over 700, 702 or 712. That the actual hall space was never proposed to be of that size. The total building was. So there's two different figures being compared together. The actual total building size against the hall size. The accurate figure is at paragraph 6.6, which was a total building size of 740 square meters with a playing hall size of 570. That was the original proposal as agreed, and the revised proposal to reflect the reality of the cost. And that has been highlighted here. Cost is a major consideration for us. It absolutely has to be. The building has to be paid for. But I can't subscribe professionally to the view that the building of a facility as is proposed would be inadequate for Stornoway Primary.
Okay, thanks, Don. I'll just who's next? Councillor Crichton.
Thank you, Chairman. The reality is we are where we are in terms of in the context of the spiraling costs. You know, we have to accept it's before us, and we have to respect the professional opinion that's been brought to us in the report from the consultant quantity surveyor. I mean, having said that, I think what has been proposed actually goes beyond what was originally requested. And I think the original request was a block extension to the current gymnasium. And we now have a proposal which has been reduced in size, but will still be larger than what was originally requested in terms of a block extension. So, you know, there is still going to be a substantial extension and provision of facilities for the purposes of that are outlined in the report. I know we've got a difficult situation in terms of the budget, but we have to accept it and move on and build what we can with what we've got, and it'll still be above the aspiration that was originally set out.
Okay, thanks. Councillor McCormack, I think, was next.
Thank you very much, Chair. I've lived with this project for a long time. And it was very much an issue when I was the Chair of Education. And at that time, you will recall that we drew up a list of capital priorities within education. And this project could not be included in that because we just didn't have the capital to do it, which didn't mean we didn't want to do it. It just meant that the capital was not there. And then in the budget setting, I think in 2021, a proposal was brought forward by a group of members that £350 million be set aside to build something. I don't quite know what they had in mind, but it wouldn't have been a very big garden shed, really, to be honest.
Yeah, a good garden shed for 50 million.
However, did I say 50 million? No.
You said 350 million.
I did I?
You did, yeah.
Oh, God. Right, okay, I'll start again. 350,000. Now, I would have opposed that. I was no longer the chair of education at that point. I would certainly have opposed that. But at that time, the leader of the council, Councillor Mackay, and the chair of education, who is now our leader, they put forward a motion, an amendment rather, that we should look at trying to find some money somewhere in the overall budget provision that could address the situation at Stornoway Primary School. There was no money, still no money in the education budget. So the £2 million we're talking about here, I'm not quite sure where it came from. It was sliced off other budgets here and there and everywhere. And the point is that £2 million will have to be repaid to wherever it came from at some point in the future. So we have found this £2 million to spend on this project, and I was quite happy to support that. I mean, I have all sorts of aspirations myself about things that I would like to happen in these islands. There are schools that we should be replacing in these islands, and we're not doing that because we don't have any money to do it. So having found a way of satisfying the ambitions of Stornoway Primary School, I think we have to take the chance that we have now, because if we postpone this decision, the only thing that will happen is that the costs will go back up again. And it will be even more difficult to take this project forward. This is a pretty good result, I would say, in the current financial circumstances that we find ourselves in. I know that there are disappointments around it. I accept that. I mean, we've already had the discussion just earlier this morning, rather. I do know it's the morning. Is it still the morning?
No.
No, it's not. It's the afternoon. Okay. So I was right. I was right the first time. We've already had the discussion in terms of the servicing of education in the Outer Hebrides. It's a real challenge for us, and we just do not have the necessary monies to do all of the things that we'd like to do. There are schools throughout the Western Isles who require capital funding, and they can't have it right now because we don't have it. I would like to suggest, and I would support this report, Chair. I think we should take the opportunity to do this. This is a real positive step forward, and I will certainly support the recommendation here, Chair.
Okay, thanks. And thanks, others. Right, we'll bring in, can I bring in Councillor Murray, please? If that's it, you're in.
Thanks, Chair. Again, I'm not a member of your committee. It's very disappointing to see this report. Having read it a number of times, I think what strikes me is that the delay was not caused by the school community, but it was caused by process. And I don't think the school should be penalised in this way. Penalised in this way when a commitment was made. I think the figures are questionable. The amount going up by 75% is huge. And capital projects too are kind of a little bit fluid. And sometimes we have to find the money to respect that commitment that was made to the school community. And we're all talking about partnership working all the time. We've got to bring people with us all the time. But I wanted to ask a question to yourself, Chair, in terms of what I think I gleaned from the 2 hours quality PE is that can you give a quality PE lesson in a badminton court when there's 20 plus pupils? What do you think?
I think you can, yeah. I've seen it. I was in Stornoway Primary one, was it last year or the year before, and they were actually doing that. It was actually in the middle of a lesson. I actually came into the middle of a lesson and sat in on a PE lesson, and they actually were doing that. Actually, that was in the old hall, the existing hall, you know, and they actually were doing that. Yeah, so it is possible. Yeah, possible. Yeah.
No, I think I would probably disagree with you there, but anyway, I would be supporting what Councillor Mackenzie is putting forward as to withdraw the report.
Okay, right. Thanks. Did you want to come back, Doc? I see your lights on. Did you?
Yes, please.
Yeah. And who's got too many lights on? Norrie. Well, Norrie's on, and I've got Finlay now. Okay, that's it. So I've got Finlay on.
Thank you, Chair. I did just want to clarify that there have been no doubt and don't dispute delays in bringing the project forward. But as I mentioned when I spoke previously, these delays have predominantly been due to a due diligence that we must undertake in terms of the procurement process. We are dealing with a potential international supplier for some of this work. There are complexities around that have to be fully explored in the interests of protecting the Comhairle's investment. There were complex issues around insurance that had to be pursued and investigated. And whilst they contributed to some delay, the increase in costs are not predominantly because of the delay. They are a contributing factor to some degree, but they are not the sole cause of an increase of the development cost of well over 70%. There are a number of complex reasons all coming together around the increase in costs for construction that have had to be factored in from the consultant quantity surveyors. And it is this full cost modelling that has highlighted the true construction cost of what was proposed.
Okay, right. So I think Norman was Councillor. Was next. Yes. Leave it on. Okay,
Yeah,
thanks.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah.
Keep switching on.
When it comes to the provision of sporting facilities in any school in the Western Isles and sporting facilities of any kind, even provided by communities in the Western Isles, I'm a passionate believer in making sure that our kids have access to particularly indoor facilities, given the climate we have here in the Western Isles. I've seen the benefits of sport from most of us here who have been involved in sport in our younger days and maybe kept it going for a while. Sport brings out the best in our pupils. And the ability to access sporting facilities brings out the best in everybody. You know, kids need to have the ability to exercise and to run around. And we've heard the figures from Sports Scotland, etc., on what the provision should be for primary school kids, etc. So when it comes to the passionate support that the Stornoway councillors have had for this project, I can't fault them for their commitment and passion to it. But I inhabit the real world, as I'm sure they do as well, and they know that when it comes to budgets, we are having our hands tied. Costs have increased exponentially, and whether we like it or not, these are the realities that we have to deal with. Providing a facility that is bespoke, sizable, and fit for purpose in the 21st century isn't cheap. But my worry is that when people start talking about 470 metres or 570 metres or 830 metres or whatever it is that the sizes of these projects are, do any of us have any concept of what we're talking about? You're plucking a number out of the sky. How big is this chamber? Have a guess. I haven't a clue. But I would suggest that if we're going to go forward and try to sell this project to the parents of Stornoway Primary School, we draw a curtain across the sports centre to the size of their hall and invite them to come down and have a look and say, this is what 470 metres looks like. Do you think it's big enough? Because this is what you're going to get. Make no doubt about it, guys. This is what they're going to get. They're not going to get the extended version of it because we cannot commit to spending another £1.5 million. But when you're talking about a number, can you visualise what the number is? Draw a curtain across the existing sports centre to the size of the hall that these pupils will hopefully be inhabiting at a very short date, however long it takes to construct, and let them know and understand what the size of the project actually consists of. Because you can talk about a number, you're blue in the face, If I said to you 470 metres, you wouldn't have a clue what 470 metres squared looks like, because I don't have a clue. I'm not an architect. So I would suggest that we make that size of the sports centre, curtain across it, invite the parents down and say, listen, guys, do you think this is going to be big enough? It might be a good start, you know, because they don't know what they're getting. I would suggest they haven't a clue what they're talking about when it comes to size and space. Quite a lot of them. Some of them will have. The guys who have, I'm sure, I think it's an architect or an whatever on the parent committee. But if you give them a visualization of what it is that's going to be provided, it might be a better way to sell to the parent council and to the parents of Stornoway Primary, because it's not easy to envisage what 570 and 470 are. I think we could do a better job by curtaining off the sports centre and showing them, here's 470 metres. What do you think?
Okay, right.
A suggestion.
Okay, right. Thanks, Norrie. Just Don wants to come back here, so just let him back in.
Thank you. Thanks, Chair. Very briefly, it was just to highlight that in paragraph 611 of the report, we have taken cognizance of what Councillor MacDonald is saying there, and I've tried to provide some comparative footprints. And the games hall across at ISL is a 6-court hall, and the hall playing area footprint, not the building footprint, is almost exactly half the games hall at ISL. So that should be an approximate indicator of the existing curtain and barrier there being equivalent to the size being offered. And the diagram at 611 does intend to try and give a visual representation of these rather abstract figures.
Okay, thanks. I think Councillor Stewart's next.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to agree with Councillor McCormack. If my memory serves me correctly, this all began with an I don't know if it's any of the Stornoway councillors who are in here at the moment, but they came forward seeking funding of about 300 to 350,000 for a mugger or a all-weather pitch. That was the first application they made, and now we've come to this. You know, after many debates about it and meeting after meeting and winter after winter, when the kids are still playing outside. And now here we are again, and we need to go back again and consult again. And yeah, I mean, like someone else said, we all have aspirations for our own schools and our own communities, and you know, sadly sometimes that's governed by finance, and that's the situation we're in at the moment. And as far as escalating costs, yes, I quite believe and go with the fact that they have escalated by 70%. As someone who was in the building trade and who was in it before COVID and through COVID and after COVID, I've seen costs escalating more than 70% in some cases. And actually, some costs have come down, but other costs are still escalating, labour costs and such, because of the lack of well, qualified tradesmen that are available, and these costs will escalate. And the longer we live with this, and we're going back again to maybe another consultation, another meeting next winter, are we going to be sitting here, or even 2025, whoever sees that of us sitting in here, are we going to be sitting here again with the same thing? Because there's going to come a time, if we don't move on this, that the whole thing is going to become just out of our reach altogether, and we'll be back to a mugger. That's my fear for the whole thing. You know, I know that I agree that if parents only found out about it 2 or 3 days ago, it wasn't very, you know, they should have known maybe a lot earlier than that, and they could have spoken about it earlier than that. But I don't exactly know what's going to change. I can't see us finding the money for the forecourt facility, so I think we have to go with what we have. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Finlay. Councillor Francis Murray.
Thank you very much, Chair. I haven't been involved in the history of the project like so many of you have, but I'm just, you know, coming in on the fact that something was agreed in, I think, June 2022, and it is, you know, you can see the disappointment in the parents. Those of us who met them last night saw that, and I think it's unfortunate that they didn't have more time, as Councillor Stewart said there, to be spoken to, because people do feel valued if they're spoken to in time and they're given their place. And I think a lot could be learned from that, that we need to ensure that people know things in advance and have these discussions as soon as possible can. And totally understand that people are stretched too. It's important that whatever is there is going to be something that's going to be seen as meeting their needs. I think a lot of the parents that I've spoken to do have a good perception of what the area looks like, because they did the pegging out of the size on the sports field back in May 2022. So they aren't just plucking figures out of the air, and they have consulted widely with Sports Scotland, I think. So I think it's unfair to the parents to suggest they don't know what they're asking for.
Thanks, Francis. Councillor George Murray.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor MacDonald, what an excellent idea, practical idea to give people just an idea. But as Councillor Mackenzie said, it's hardly consultation. These are well-meaning, hard-working people who were handed this report Wednesday evening and expected to give an informed opinion, having discussed it with the parents of all the pupils involved in the school within 3 working days. And I wonder, could we hold on to this report until the next set of meetings in order to give them the opportunity to speak to the parents of the children who are the most important part of this?
Point of order.
Yep.
Did Mr. MacLeod not inform the meeting that he informed officers of the Parent Council in December last year as soon as he knew the change in the circumstances? Is that correct?
That is correct. I attended a meeting at Stornoway Primary where the head of school was also present, and I informed office bearers at that time that the projected costs had increased significantly to the region of 3.4, 3.5 million. At that time, we hadn't given an indication of an intention to seek a report for February, but in consultation with the building projects team, they have significant pressures in terms of the advancement of the project, which is why partly obviously for updating to members, and there have been member requests for this report, which is why it comes to committee as well. But the particular pressure is the expiring of the tender for the tensile fabric structure, but also that there are now active contracts with 3 separate consultant construction services, and delays will incur costs in terms of that as well. But the office bearers of the Parent Council were informed of this in a meeting in December when we were meeting on other matters as well.
Thanks, Donald. Right, I've lost track of who was next. There was someone else. I think that's everybody. Is that everybody? Oh, Councillor McLean.
Thanks, Chair, for bringing me in. I haven't been involved in this project at all, but I suggest something. I think Councillor MacDonald spoke very well, and not often I agree with you that you're speaking so well, Mr. MacDonald, but and reinforced by the local councillor, Mr. Murray. I think that the problem here seems to be consultation or consultation with the staff. But as already alluded to, I come from a ward that would love 1,100,000 for 2 schools, which we'd love to spend on our schools. But anyway, we're in the situation which we're in, and I don't grudge Stornoway Primary at all, because it's the largest primary in our region. But would it be prudent, or would it be possible to hold back for 4 weeks, give a 4-week, I know it's going to delay it, a 4-week period of consultation, and just to consult with the Parent Council with what we've got here, could take in what Councillor MacDonald says, show them. I know you've got it written, Mr. MacLeod, on here to some of us who are okay with diagrams. It's okay, but many people wouldn't envisage. You're actually seeing it as it stands, and just to hold back for 4 weeks, would that have a hugely detrimental effect on the project? I know delays will have probably costs, but at least you're consulting over a change, quite a dramatic change to some people, because I'm just suggesting that.
It's for the chamber to determine, but it would still require, in my understanding, a decision, and that the earliest that decision could then be undertaken is in the series at the end of April. So the timescale of consultation would be in some ways immaterial within that, because the decision would still have to come to the April series.
The other question I'd want to ask is, can I ask what would change? So we would have to find the money to even as it is, we're looking at 2.25. Well, we allocated 2 million. Yeah, sorry, I'll let you. Hang on, who's on now? Angus, do you just switch off your mic, Angus? Just let me.
I don't think anything would change of what you've got there, but at least there is the feeling that they've been consulted, and if some of us would say it's reasonable to suggest that we have to reduce it because of the costs. Some people would say it's unreasonable, but we come to a reasoned decision.
Okay, Councillor McCormack.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me to come back in again. I think there's a real danger if we do not take a decision today that this project may never go ahead. I think we're in a difficult situation just now. The director has outlined the number of costs that will go up if we delay this, and even a month's delay, I think Councillor McLean, would be enough for these costs to go up. And if we're going to delay for a month and come up with the same decision, then all we've done is force the costs up, and that may have a negative effect on whether the project goes ahead or not. I think as a committee, we really ought to give a positive response to the suggestions here, agree to this so that we can have this project go ahead. It's a significant improvement on what is currently in existence at Stornoway Primary School. There's absolutely no doubt about that at all. It may not meet all of the aspirations, but how often do we ever meet all of the aspirations in our lives that we might have? I mean, it's unfortunate that these things are forced upon us very often by the timetable of meetings of this council. And that really is what's caused the problem here. The director needed to bring a report to us now because he couldn't possibly delay it until April, because by then who knows what the costs would be. So I think really I would, advise that we really ought to take the decision today and go ahead with a project which we think we can make work. And that's not 100% either, even from this report. We're still hoping to get some money from the Scottish Government. But hopefully, if all of that comes to pass, we can actually make this project work. And I think at the end of the day, the parents and the children will be well pleased with what's provided. My view.
Councillor Mackenzie.
Don't think it's a laughing matter, actually, whichever way you look at it. In February 2018, it was proposed that we build a new gym. And that was estimated at 1.2 million, and the council rejected it by one vote at the time, including 4 Stornoway councillors, if I recall, rejected that. But as far as it's been mentioned, Stornoway has been mentioned here today, there's pupils in there from Ness, from Point, from Back, from the west side. So, I mean, we're not talking just about Stornoway Primary. It's called that, but it actually takes in pupils from all over the island. Anyway, I digress. Incidentally, just another remark was made at the end of 2071. That's probably when I was on the council first. That the new harbour was going to go ahead at the same time as its development at Stornoway Primary. And somebody said the new harbour, which costs 40, 50, 60 million, whatever, will be finished before one brick goes in to Stornoway Primary. I think it's turning out that way. I'm not sure if Norris actually putting forward that the report be withdrawn so that, you know, the school population can have a look at the curtain across or whatever. And I take it that Mr. McCormack is now going for recommendation B. Is that the case? Is that the case?
Right. What will
well, I'm not finished, but I just want.
Yeah. Well, we can't.
We didn't have any word as to which one it was. Apart from prudential borrowing, there is slippage. Now there's a major project, presumably money was slipped from that particular project in Barra. We're all supportive of the school in Barra and hope that goes ahead, but I take it that the money from that project has slipped sufficiently, and we're talking about tens of millions there, so that it would could go towards this project.
Sorry, I missed that last bit. I mean, to what you're making a suggestion that we take the money from the Barra. No. Someone's might Donald. Yeah.
What I said was that presumably we're all supportive of the Barra project, but there must be slippage at the present time. And I don't know what that comes to, but maybe somebody can tell me that possibly it could be at this stage, $1 million, or whatever is required, could be towards this project.
Okay. Well, I don't know what. I'm welcoming you. Same again. Someone will have to switch off the mic. Can someone switch it? That's it. Okay, you're on mic.
Thank you, Chair. The question can be asked and probably better answered at Policy and Resources Committee, but the Barra and Battersea Community Campus project remains on the capital programme, as members are aware, and as I'll be reporting at the informal tonight, we continue very active discussions to try and deliver that project or as much of it as we can. So it is a live project on the capital programme, and as members will recall, we increased the commitment to it when resolving the capital programme. So I'm not the chief financial officer, but I don't think that will avail any capital. No. I'm afraid. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Crichton.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not a member of your committee, but I think the committee needs to come to a conclusion. Yeah. Because the longer we delay, well, we're going to jeopardise the whole extension, whole project. As I said before, what even this reduced capacity, what has been proposed, still exceeds what was originally requested, and I think parents will be satisfied with the end product.
Okay, right. I think we'll just bring this to a close. I'm going to ask. Go on, make it last one because time's gone on.
I was just going to agree with entirely with what Councillor Crichton's just said. We can agree that some Stornoway councillors have made as much representation as is possible, and that the parent council would reasonably expect of them within this chamber. And we can agree that we can go through the process of the illusion of consultation. But unless we agree, and I will recommend proposal B here, unless we agree this today, we're jeopardising what it is we can actually achieve for the 2.25 million. We might as well go ahead and agree with one of these recommendations today as to not further jeopardise what it is we're getting. And what we're given Stornoway Primary is far in advance of what was originally requested, as Councillor Stewart already mentioned. So putting forward one of these proposals today and agreeing it, we can go round the houses all we like, and all we're going to do is delay, pretend we're consulting. We've taken cognizance of the views of Stornoway elected members as well. They've made their representations forcefully and commend them for it, and the parent council should commend them as well. But we should come to a conclusion here today. So whether we vote for A or B, we should have a vote on it just now, whether to recommend it one way or the other.
I'm just going to bring the leader in here, and then that's it. And we decide what we're going to do here, because time's going on, and we need to get some decisions made.
MacDonald was the one that suggested. Councillor MacDonald was the one that suggested we delay and pick and take people in. So it's now saying the opposite, that we don't take people up.
He didn't suggest it. Actually, he didn't. Councillor McLean actually suggested it. So, right, leader.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you for your patience in bringing everyone in. I think it's been worthwhile having the debate and discussion. Pretty much every point I was going to make has been made, so I'll not go over it. I think there's been good support from the committee and the Comhairle for this project. Like I say, it's moved up quite quickly, and I think the allocation of 2 million in the capital programme was right. We'd hoped we were going to get the 4 court. It's not worked out that way. 3 court is still providing more than the requirements for the 2. In fact, more than twice as much than the requirements. I don't think going out to consultation and nothing changing is, that's not fair to our public. If they should have been consulted before, the information was shared, that point of order was made. Maybe the information about it being a 3 court wasn't shared. I think we can keep that engagement going, but Norrie's right. We need to make a decision today, I believe, to take forward this proposal, because there's a risk that if the tender runs out and we go back out to tender, I can guarantee it's not coming back cheaper, and we're going to have to try and find even more money. So I would suggest that we move ahead with recommendations as they are, but some further engagement with the parent council along the lines that has been suggested to kind of explain the reasoning. Ideally, we would have built as big as we could. At the moment, that is what we're doing. We're building as big as we can with the budget that we've got. So I'll leave it at that.
Yes, do members agree to the recommendation at 3.1? Okay, thank you. Councillor Mackenzie, last point.
No, I don't agree. But it's the will of the people, as I say, so I accept that today.
Yeah, well, as I said, even if you look at point B, we agree at 2.2. If we can't find that, and if we're not successful with the bid, we'll be bringing it back to find the other $250,000. So, just be aware of it. You need to be aware of it. So let's hope we get the funding. Right, so item 10, establishment of a policy on mobile phone use in schools. This report relates to the establishment of a policy for mobile phone use in school. Again, I would ask Don McLeod to speak to the report and answer any questions.
Yes, thank you, Chair. We're taking this as an information report and to gather the views of members in Chamber in terms of the establishment of a policy on mobile phone use in schools. It's something that we have been receiving increasing representations about in varying degrees and wish to take the perspective of the Chamber in that. Obviously, the rapid rise in availability and technological capability of mobile devices are increasingly having an impact on education settings. And as it stands at the moment across the Western Isles, it's an issue that's predominantly and almost exclusively affecting secondary education at the present time. But there are signs that mobile phone and digital technology usage is encroaching into younger and younger ages. Our 4 secondary schools at the moment all have their own internal and formal policies in place, and they range from restricted areas or no phone zones where there's parts of the school where a mobile phone may not be permitted to be used, through to some schools that now have established boxes at the door of every classroom where devices must be left before they enter the room. So there's a governance of the use of the mobile phone within the active lesson, but they're still available to be used in social and other times of the school day. The feedback that we've been receiving is that there's a real will to standardise our procedure around how we conduct and advise schools in relation to mobile phone use. The report highlights that there are complex issues around the matter. There is no doubt that there is increasing awareness of the disruption that the access to mobile technologies have in education through issues such as cyberbullying and so on, but also increasingly, particularly with the development of AI, the potential claims for fraudulent or cheating in submission of works and materials. But it is also important to acknowledge that mobile phones have been a great liberator and have provided learners with the opportunity to learn in new and interesting ways. They are actively used in some lessons. They are increasingly used for personal safety. They are used for managing health conditions. They are used to support their life in school. In addition, we have some teachers who, like I say, plan the use of mobile technology into their lessons, and it's something that they are keen to continue to support. So the report provides some background information to members on the issue, and is seeking the views of members on whether or not the Comhairle should seek to develop a consistent policy on the matter. Happy to take questions.
Okay, Councillor Fraser. No, hang on. Same again. Just mics off, please. I've got a note anyway. Who's? Oh, still won't do it. That's it. Okay, you're in.
Oh, thank you, Chair, and I thank the Director for this report. I noted very recently that the Department for Education in England will be offering new guidance which will tell schools to ban pupils from using their phones during the school day. This will also include break time and lunch times, as well as in the classroom. Pupils will still be able to bring their phones to school, so they can still be used on the journey there and back. I wonder, can I ask the Director, does he envisage that our new policy will be reflected by the suggestions in such guidance?
At the moment, I wouldn't be able to say with certainty, because we are proposing to, this is a very early paper, because we are proposing to consult and develop the policy, and it would be through consultation with young people, consultation with staff, parents and other stakeholders, what the Comhairle policy position would be. And obviously the policy would come back to Chamber here for the consideration of members on what the final policy should be as well. So it's difficult to, I wouldn't be able to say with certainty and predetermine the outcome of that. And it is in reflection of the fact that it's an issue that sometimes divides opinion, that the report provides evidence in support of very heavy restrictions on the use of mobile phones in schools, but also recognises the potential positive use. And importantly, in 6.7, a duty upon educators to promote and help young people to understand and undertake responsible use of the technology that's all around them and forms a critical part of their lives. And there's certainly a view that excluding it from educational settings can risk it becoming a subject that young people feel they maybe can't get support for and can't be supported in how to use responsibly. So it's a complex issue, but there's no doubt as well, as has been highlighted, there's some serious concerns about the risks presented too. So I wouldn't predetermine the outcome of that consultation and development of policy. It would be for everyone involved to come to a consensus on what the field of policy for the Western Isles should be. But the concern predominantly at the moment is we have different policies across our different schools. And that is leading to inconsistencies and issues. And there's a strong will to try and standardise our perspective on this, recognising that there's work happening both at Scottish and UK and actually beyond UK level in relation to the impact of mobile phones in education.
And I just let I see you're in now. That's it.
Can I ask the Director, have you or has your department received significant lobby from teaching staff looking for a change in this policy?
I wouldn't describe it as significant lobbying, but in engagement with our schools and their head teachers, there's been a will to have some standardisation of our position as a council. That's the main representation that I've been receiving. It's not been about having one particular position or another, but the fact that our position is not consistent at the moment is our biggest issue. It's an area of policy that has been left entirely to individual schools to determine, and that has led to a variation in practice. So that's the predominant representation I've received.
Councillor George Murray, I think Susan's after.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's entirely sensible to have a consistent approach across all the schools. But my breakfast time reading this morning, I'm a sado, well, Googling jamming devices. I don't know if they're legal or if they're illegal, because I was getting two contrary opinions from Google. And also, pardon? And I also wonder, I've lost the train of my thought now. yeah, are jamming devices legal or not? And can IT departments limit where phone calls can be made to? For instance, stopping Facebook from being accessed or social media from being accessed, but educational sites being utilised, because the technology is there and it's going to be really difficult to police it.
Absolutely, and policing of any policy is going to be a consideration of the policy itself too. I wouldn't be able to give you an opinion on whether on the legality or not of jamming devices, but it's something that we can explore as part of the policy development. At the moment, the schools' networks are highly protected, and any mobile phones that are in use in schools are only operating on wide range 4G networks. They are not connected to school networks, and there's no intention of opening them up to school networks. But the ability for the phones to connect and have high-speed internet over the phone open phone signal is the greater challenge, which is why jammers obviously is part of the issue. In the internal school network, we can absolutely do, as you describe, Councillor Murray, to restrict certain sites and restrict the use, but that's only on Comhairle-owned devices that are commissioned onto the networks. These are the personal devices that young people bring into school that are operating on phone networks.
Okay, Councillor Thompson.
Dear. I would welcome standardisation of the policy. While we're undertaking the consultation, would it be possible to extend the scope of that consultation to consider what you just mentioned about allowing people to connect their own devices to the school network? I understand it's a very sensitive subject at the moment for us round about IT, but I think there is perhaps an unintended consequence of not allowing people to connect their own laptops, for example. There was an issue raised at Lynnet Parent Council that when laptops are being repaired, those young people are left without any devices, and that is having an impact on their learning. So that was the background to the request. Can we look at ways of allowing people to bring their own devices, their laptops and things, and connecting them to the school's IT system?
It's absolutely something we can look at, and it is being looked at aside from the policy on mobile phone use, to look at bring your own device type options. It's always been a security decision to restrict the school's network to Comhairle only devices, but what's being looked at is a partitioning model that would allow a sort of public Wi-Fi type partition within the school network that still protects the internal network, but might still allow personal devices to connect. So that's something that I can't give a certainty would definitely be doable at this stage, but we can absolutely explore.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Francis Murray.
Thank you very much, Chair. I led the implementation of the current Nicholson policy on mobile phone use about 5 years ago, and maybe slightly less than that. And we consulted with parents, we consulted with young people, consulted with staff, and it was very difficult to find something that everybody was happy with. And we had to be realistic. In some ways, as an educator, you often wish you could disinvent the mobile phone because it causes so much bother. But on the other hand, you have, as you said yourself, some young people monitoring maybe diabetes, families where parents are living in different addresses and they need to make quick contact with their children. And also you have some subjects, for instance, my own subject in English, where you wouldn't have access to calculators, and you might be writing a factual report in a class where it's quite handy to say to your class, someone to go out their mobile and do the calculations. So what we ended up agreeing on was a policy which was called off and away, so that mobile phones had to be switched off and put away. They weren't, within easy reach while you were in the classroom. The reason, and probably most of the trouble happens outside the classroom with their use, really, but we simply couldn't police it. If you're talking of over 1,000 pupils at an interval, and giving your staff their statutory breaks, you cannot effectively police 1,000 people putting away their mobile phones during intervals and lunchtime. So we had to be pragmatic, and I suppose that's where I understand the need for standardisation, but policy that we had to adopt in the Nicholson possibly was more cagey than it would be in, say, Surrey, Scott or Castleby, where the numbers are much more small and where you would be able to maybe police that at intervals and lunchtimes as well. There was originally, before 4G came along, it wasn't so much of a bother because most of the various parts of the school you can get a signal anyway, and we didn't have to police it. That was great. But I think, we have to acknowledge the important role for some families that their mobiles played during COVID as well, when they didn't have devices. Some young people were doing their work on their phones. Obviously, they went in school at that point, but people got used to using phones for things that I suppose we're all in that situation. And we have to be pragmatic. We have to be aware of what our resources are and be aware of any unintended consequences too of making the ban that Councillor Fraser, he's not here now, referenced. But making a high level ban and then not being able to police it, I think, is damaging. I think you have to be very aware of the limitations that you have. You don't want your entire educational output to be on banning phones, and that takes up a lot of your time. We have to acknowledge there are good things about their use as well, and take people with us, I think, on this one.
Okay, thanks, Francis. Did you want to come? You don't want to come back, do you? No. Right, Leader.
Thanks very much. Just to agree with much what Councillor Murray said there. I think setting, I suppose, exemptions, clarifying what the exemptions are, if it's to be class use only or if it's for medical use, that's going to be really key. But I think going to consultation is going to kind of weed out these problems. Then it's going to be the difficult decision of actually picking which things fit. You mentioned there might be slightly different areas, so I suppose that'll come out in the whole consultations. But it's definitely worth doing, and I think clarifying exemptions is going to be one of the key aspects.
Yeah, you're right. So in that case, do members agree to the recommendation at 3.1? Read, yeah. Right. Item 11 relates to the Northern Alliance Regional Improvement Collaborative, progress and changes to funding. Once again, I will ask Donald McLeod to speak to the report and answer any questions. Sorry, Don.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I think the voice is just about holding out. So this is an important report that's coming before committee today. It was a report that would have been coming anyway for the first purpose of sharing the Northern Alliance Progress and Impact Report for 2022-23, which was published in November time. And section 6, particularly of the report, does take through the work of the Northern Alliance that's been undertaken in that time period, which was in the most part very positive. It does also highlight a strategic change that was undertaken by the agreement of the directors of the 8 authorities within the Northern Alliance to shift the focus in the future years of the delivery plan in coming away from what had been a focus on full and right drivers in 22-23 to a very strict and tight focus on quality assurance and improvement in learning and teaching, which was an evidenced priority coming out of inspections across the 8 authority areas of the Northern Alliance. However, a second element of the report came to the fore following the address of the Cabinet Secretary for Education and Skills on the 7th of November that confirmed to the Scottish Parliament in an address there that there was an intention to taper down funding for the regional improvement collaboratives from 2024 onwards. And that is in effect going to result in a significant, if not total, curtailing of the work of the regional improvement collaboratives. So the report provides information, particularly in section 7, 7.1 to 7.7, of the potential impact of the withdrawal of funding for the regional improvement collaboratives. As it stands today, we still haven't had confirmation of what the level of tapered funding for 24-25 for the regional improvement collaboratives is going to be. But the indications are that it will be a significant reduction down to the realms of possibly 20% of the original £1 million per year they were receiving, which will effectively curtail almost all of the work of the Northern Alliance as an improvement collaborative. So it's the predominant purpose of the report to provide that information to members and reflect on it as they wish to.
Okay, does anybody have any questions? Nope. In that case, then, do you members agree to the recommendations at 3.1? Right, item 12. Confucius Institute for Scotland Schools. This report provides an update with regard to Chinese language and cultural awareness activities in Western Isles schools, supported by the Confucius Institute for Scottish Schools, following a request for a report at the September 2023 series of meetings. And who's speaking? Richard, is Richard here to speak about the report?
No, Richard is not available.
Okay.
Mr. Jarvis gives his apologies for today's committee. He said a travel commitment that meant he couldn't be here. So I'll speak to the report on his behalf to allow it to be discussed. The report is a response to a request for a report from members previously seeking information about the work of the Confucius Institute for Scotland Schools programme within the Western Isles. So the report sets out the information in response to that in terms of the fact that the eSchool has been working with the Confucius Institute for Scottish Schools through their partnership with SILT, the Scottish Centre for International Language Teaching. There's a lot of acronyms and abbreviations in this one. And as part of that early development of eSchool, it was linked to looking at avenues for supporting online language delivery across the eSchool partnership. As part of that relationship with CISS, there was an agreement through eSchool for the establishment of Confucius classrooms in the Western Isles, and two schools came forward to express interest in participation in that, Stornoway Primary and Scollina Clitch. Stornoway Primary received funding to instigate a Confucius classroom space within the school. It's labelled as a Confucius classroom, but it's not a classroom as you would consider a classroom to be. It creates a resource space within another part of the school and is predominantly around the bringing of Chinese language and cultural learning into other aspects of the curriculum in the existing classrooms. There is an appendix to the report that sets out the involvement of Stornoway Primary since its inception in the programme in 2021. And also the report confirms that although Scollina Clitch agreed to participate in the Confucius Classroom programme, they haven't yet actually started or commenced any work. They are aiming to do that within the current academic year. The paragraph 6.3 indicates the work that Stornoway Primary has undertaken, and as I've indicated, there's a further detail of that in the appendix. There's also appendices that show the Confucius classroom footprint across Scotland, and also a position paper from the Scottish Centre for International Language Teaching. So happy to take questions from members on that.
And does anybody have any questions? Councillor McLean. If I can get you to come on. No, same again. Angus, can you switch yours off, please? No, you're on, Angus. Not Angus, you're on, Callum.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, thanks for the report, Mr. MacLeod. And it's informative. One or two questions. You say that the financial implications, you say, is nil. Do we get any finance? Because I know Strathclyde University are getting finance from the Chinese government for this, and therefore I would anticipate that they're putting some of that funding to the schools involved. This Stornoway Primary and Eilean Clitch.
There is a funding element to the Confucius classroom. Like I say, I wasn't the author of the report, so I'm speaking to the reporters. But there is a funding element to the participation, and through their involvement in CISS, there will be grant funding available to the Stornoway Primary and Scollina Clitch to support their curricular work. I'm aware that Stornoway Primary did receive funding for resources to support their curriculum learning and to undertake their links to China. What there isn't funding for or any connection here is where there's some examples of where a teacher becomes associated with the Confucius classroom and teaches Chinese in the school. That's not part of their projects. But I can only surmise that the financial aspect was left at none because there wasn't a financial implication for the Comhairle in it, although there is a grant funding via CISS.
I see there's a link between Stornoway Primary and a school in Tianjin in the province, and they're talking about climate ready classroom. I just have to have a wee smirk on my face and to say that to have climate ready classrooms in China is a wee bit extending or even teaching them how to do climate change when they're quite prepared not to do any climate change whatsoever. But the most polluting country in the world. But anyway, maybe we'll change that through the connection here. It's also interesting and very interesting to see that there's a connection with Eric Liddell in it, and that's very good. And we hope that the school in China can actually learn a wee bit about Eric Liddell as well. So I'm just making these comments, but thanks very much for the report.
Okay. And the Eric Liddell project is a significant one happening currently to tie in with the 100-year commemoration of the appearance in the Paris Olympics. So it's being marked in both China and across Scotland, but particularly at Stornoway Primary at the moment.
Yeah.
And I think all classes have been working on Eric Liddell focused project work.
Yeah, very interesting project.
Councillor McCormack, I think, was the next.
Thank you very much, Chair. Very interesting report indeed. And I have no issues with us speaking with the Chinese, and I hope that we can influence them positively. But my question really is, we teach Gaelic and English in that order in our schools, as I understand it. There have been discussions in the past about us teaching a modern European language. I think that would be something that I would aspire to if we possibly could. And as we know, the sooner you start teaching children a language, the quicker they absorb it. So could we start in our preschool with modern European language? Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Angus.
I would just note that under the Scottish Government's Languages 1+2 policy, which the Comhairle has subscribed to and adopted, their main language is their language of the home. Then language 2 is another language that they're able to learn from primary 1 onwards. So dependent on their home language, for us it's either Gaelic or English. And then their language 3 is a language an additional language they can pick up from primary 5. And for us, our policy language on that is French. So our pupils should be learning French from primary 5 onwards.
Okay, right, thanks. Okay. Right, so do members agree to note the report? Thank you. Item 13 provides Scottish Public Library Annual Survey 2023. Item 13 provides an update on the views expressed by library service users in the Western Isles in the Scottish Public Library Annual Survey 2023. And Mr. Neil MacLeod will speak to the report and answer any questions. Just for noting. No, it's just
Yes, Chair, it's just a short report just to share the Scottish Library Information Council survey. So she said October 23, looking at 4 key areas, but the ones most of interest, learning and skills, and also health and well-being. And the final comment I would make just now is how it found that the staff in the libraries across the Western Isles were informative, welcoming, knowledgeable. So it providing, the survey sort of shows the value I think that the community place on the library service. So just to share these findings. So very positive report, but happy to answer any specific questions members may have.
Councillor, who's got the mic on now? God, come on. Right, Councillor Brighton.
Thank you, Chair. Names. Committee. I welcome the report and positive response to the survey. Nearly all respondents agree that the library service improves their quality of life and it's a welcoming place to visit. I think we all received a circular letter from Pamela Tulloch, Chief Executive of the Scottish Library and Information Council, who urged us, now's the time, and I paraphrase, for councillors to give libraries the financial backing they need. And I was quite taken aback by that letter, really. And I think the results of this survey reflect the investment that we have put into our libraries, given the difficult financial circumstances we face, and of course the input of staff who have made it the service that it is today. So I think it's really important that we respond to Pamela Tulloch, and I would suggest, Chairman, that you write to her outlining exactly how we've been able to deliver such an excellent service, given the financial circumstances we have faced and the excellent staff we have, and the results of this survey reflect exactly that, and that she should redirect her requests for financial necessities to the Cabinet Secretary for Education in the Scottish Government.
Okay, right, we'll do that. Yeah, thanks, Councillor Brighton. Right, so I think this report, sorry, Councillor Francis Murray.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to reiterate at point 2.2, the third bullet point, that people had said that the library saved them money, with over 50% stating that the amount saved was in excess of £10, which is no inconsiderable amount of money at a time when people are struggling. And I think when we had the discussion about libraries this time last year at budget setting, one of the points I certainly was seeking to make was how important the library has become to people in communities as a place where they can stay warm. I think all the libraries give refreshments, and there's actually, it's almost a social service. The librarians know their regulars, and if they're not coming in, they seek them out and try and make sure they're all right. So there is a very important social purpose being served beyond the reading and writing in our libraries.
Okay, thanks, Francis. So does everyone note the report? Thank you. Right, item 14, Chapman Gibb digitalisation map. This report seeks approval for the proposal to digitise and preserve the uniquely important Chapman Gibb map of Lewis, which currently hangs in the stairway of the Comhairle offices. And who speaks out is Colin? No, Neil. You speaking of that report again? Looks like it. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, I won't take long with this one. That's yeah, the Chapman Gibb map. Apparently, it's a very, very famous and valuable map. Not necessarily in terms of monetary value, but in terms of its, the period that it covers. And this project is looking at the removal from the wall, the transportation, digitization, and then the conservation of it. So this is a project that the Library Service is using grant funding that we got for a project called Capturing Memories, and there's some of the grant funding still available. So we're working in partnership with conservationists and the museum service to actually get the project done. Timescales are obviously tight with something like this when you've got specific funding for it. But again, I would urge that the project is one to be supported if you feel so obliged to do so. So I'm happy to answer any questions as well.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Noreen Thomas.
Yeah, thanks again, Chair. I was going to come in at the last point. This is pretty much the same thing. I'm hugely supportive of our libraries, and it devastates me to see other councils cutting library services across the country when the financial imperative was on protecting other services. It's an easy target within budget setting to have a go at the libraries, and we've perpetually had a go at the libraries. So we've tried to protect as best we could the service. I think it's vital that we do protect our library service and maximise the revenue that we can derive from the archive we hold within the libraries. And I've been banging on about this for 7 years now. I think this is, I take it the map's going to be returned to its original position. Neil?
No.
Is it?
Oh, sorry, no.
The actual map won't be returned to its original position. It'll be conserved, so it'll actually go to the archives.
Okay.
But a facsimile could be there.
Just asking, where is it at the moment?
It's in the corner.
Just in the corner.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we have a fantastic collection of ancient maps down in the library, and I have for years suggested that we monetize the maps that we do have within the Comhairle. I've also, I'm going to make the point here, been banging on about the archivization of the digitalization of the Gazette archive that's held within the Comhairle Library. And I have spoken to Brian Wilson about this as well. I've spoken to the director, Colmere McKeever, about this and getting funding to archive the Gazette and other historical periodicals within the Western Isles. And if we can get funding from the National Library of Scotland, I think it's vital that at some point we map this out, for want of a better, and have a schedule for proceeding with getting this done as quickly as possible before these old Gazette copies disappear into the dust, because that's where they're heading. And unless we do something quickly to digitalise them, we'll hopefully find some money from some source. I think the National Library of Scotland and an archive service as well. So I'm glad to see that maybe the ball will start to roll on this, hopefully within the next couple of months, and we'll get something done, because I think it's a vital resource that we protect and we digitise. Otherwise, we're going to lose it. And I think other periodicals probably fall under the same category, because paper does not last forever, particularly the kind of paper that the Gazette was printed on. So yeah, we need to make sure that we're protecting this valuable source of historical information. So I think maximising the revenue we can derive from what we hold in the archives is imperative. We're talking about cutting things. We should be maximising. We should be spending money to make more money on what we actually hold in the archives.
Thanks, Norrie. So, as I was saying, do members agree to note the report? Thank you. Right, item 15, which is reports outstanding, just for noting. Okay, so we're now going to, the next scheduled meeting of the committee will be on the 24th of April 2024, and we will now move into private. Can I ask all non-relevant officers and members of the public please to leave the meeting? Thank you.